Hey everybody, all my spookies out there. It is of course your host Enrique Couto here with a weekly spooky bonus bit of sorts, although I guess a bit is probably not fair because it seems like a lot. I noticed you made a spreadsheet.
I did, yes.
I am here with my good buddy and Freddy's Nightmares podcast co-host,
yes,
David Denoyer, and we are going to talk about some must-watch films.
That we are.
For the Halloween season. So if you're listening to this and it should be early in October when this airs, and you need some guidance on what to enjoy for your Halloween season, get out a piece of paper and a pencil because I made Dave come up with some, and holy moly, seriously, you've got a spreadsheet.
Yes, I have a spreadsheet in front of me. Yes, broken into 4 columns, mind you, too.
That's worrisome. Like, you have problems emotionally.
Dude, it was hard to call this down, even like, because I called you last night, and I was like, listen, like, here's where I'm at with the number. What's a good cutoff? And I was like, does 15 per category sound fine? And you're like, that's that's the max.
That's I was like, you were like, should I add any more? I'm like, please, less is better, please. So... but before we go to this, so Dave and I, we do a podcast together we've been doing for just about a year as of right now.
Yes.
Called Welcome to Primetime, a Freddy's Nightmares podcast, where we watch every single episode of Freddy's Nightmares, the Freddy Krueger anthology show that many of you are probably going, what?
What?
We watch every episode, we break it apart, we make some jokes, we have some good times. It's a really fun show.
Yeah.
And it's almost wrapped up.
Yeah, we are getting to the nitty-gritty of it.
So, and I plugged it once or twice on Weekly Spooky, but not heavily. So I just want to mention that. And so this is Dave's first time over here on Weekly Spooky.
I love it.
Because Dave is my movie nerd buddy. I mean, because we are both movie nerds.
Yes.
He is my movie nerd buddy. But just to be safe, I did bring some soundboard stuff.
Thank God.
So like if you make a bad suggestion or a good suggestion.
I was wondering.
I have things.
Yeah.
Also, I could do one where if you make a suggestion, I could be like, Hello? Anybody? No? Yeah, that would be
fair enough.
So, all right, we're gonna dive into it then.
All
so
right.
these are suggestions for your Halloween viewing.
Yes, they are.
And what do we have as number 1, David?
All right, so we have, like I said previously, broken this up into 4 categories. We have family scares, which are basically films to watch with the entire family. Seasonal rewatches, which are personal picks that I try to get into my October. Underrated Halloween, which is horror films that take place on Halloween that you may or may not know about, which are the perfect spooky feel. And then my final is the Halloween musts. And the Halloween musts are, it's October 31st. You know, you've had the trick-or-treaters, you've had your fun, and now you just want to settle in with a movie, and this is a great list to go off of. So diving into first on Family Scares, we have 1967's Mad Monster Party, which is a Rankin Bass feature film that they did, which is basically Dr. Frankenstein.
It's a cartoon.
It's animated.
Well, some people don't know what Rankin Bass means. That's the only reason I'm interjecting with that. Yeah, it's a cartoon monster special that is super fun.
Super fun.
Yeah.
So you have Dr. Frankenstein decides he's going to retire from the monster-making business. He calls an international roster of monsters to a creepy convention to elect his successor. Everyone is there, including Dracula, the werewolf, the creature, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and so many more. But Frankenstein's title is not all that's at stake. The famous doctor has also discovered a secret of total destruction that must not fall into the wrong hands.
Say what?
Say what indeed. And one of the big picks for this for me is Boris Karloff is the voice of Dr. Frankenstein.
Oh, very nice.
Yes. So that is a great one and great family film. There's some songs. It's got that whole feel to it, like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Santa Claus Come to Town.
Yeah,
Same guys.
it's a musical.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mad Monster Party is definitely one I would say is great when you've got the little ones.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sorry, it's not a cartoon, it's animated. It's stop motion animation. Yeah. So it's definitely, if you love the Rankin Bass cartoons or animations like Rudolph and stuff like that, this is something to check out. Sadly, it didn't take off as well as the Christmas ones.
No, it did not.
So they only made the one that I know of.
Yeah. So moving on to the next one in the family category.
So all of these are going to be family first.
The first, we're going to break them down categories.
No, I like that. Yeah.
So moving on, we have 2006's Monster House. This is a great family film. I actually had the pleasure of seeing this in theaters because this, when this came out, I would have been,
in 2006, you would have been
13,
3 years old, 3 years old, 2 years old.
So it
1.5 years old. Your father would be sleeping with your mother during the film.
This is a great little movie about 3 teens discover that their neighbor's house is really a living, breathing, scary monster. And basically what happens is you've got 3 kids that decide that they're going to investigate the house. So they start going into the house. They start spying on the house. It's kind of like a little bit of Disturbia, but this has a lot of great gags, a lot of great characters. It stars, in regards of voice acting, you've got like Steve Buscemi's in it, Mitchell Musso, Sam Lerner, and it was done by Gil Keenan, who also there was one big movie on his resume, that Ghostbusters Afterlife. He was one of the writers on that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like Ghostbusters Afterlife.
It's a really, really fun one, super good for the kids. And as of this recording, it is available, I believe, on Hulu, yeah.
Okay, cool.
So moving on down the list, we also have Hotel Transylvania, one of my personal favorites in 2012.
I am a massive Hotel Transylvania fan. I saw Hotel Transylvania 2 in the theater.
With me.
No.
Yes.
No, that was 3.
No, it was 2. I remember it was 2 because we were laughing about the Slurpee scene together, and when they go
Are
off.
you sure it was 2 then?
Yeah.
Then it was 1 that I saw by myself in the theater, because I saw one of them.
Yeah.
Where literally I was the only adult and man.
I'm not surprised, sadly. It didn't do super well at the box office, from what I recall.
It was packed with mothers and their children.
Oh.
That's my point. My point is that when I went to see the first Hotel Transylvania in the theater, I was a creep.
You were the creep.
And I was laughing my butt off. I do not say bleh. Because it's got Adam Sandler as Dracula, which sounds awful, but it works awesome.
Kevin James is Frankenstein. You've got, what is it? I think CeeLo Green's the Mummy in this one before he got replaced before the lawsuits
I think you might be right. I think you might be right.
Steve Buscemi's the Wolfman. Fran Drescher is Frankenstein's wife. It's a super fun movie where basically Frankenstein has decided, or not Frankenstein, Dracula has decided to move away entirely from the human population. He makes this resort out in the middle of nowhere, invites all the monsters all year round, and then he has this big bash for his daughter's birthday. And
a kind of creature bash.
Yeah, creature bash. A mad monster party.
A graveyard party, if you will.
Graveyard bash. And he invites everybody out to celebrate his daughter Mavis's birthday. And what happens is you have a human that ends up wandering his way into the castle, played by Andy Samberg.
Oh, yeah. And I just found Hotel Transylvania to be charming as all get out. I just really enjoyed it.
It's a super fun one, and it's got a little bit of everything. You've got laughs with the monsters. You've got so many monsters and like callbacks, and not callbacks, but references to other films. And
there's
whatnot.
Like the blob. There's a blob. There's an Invisible Man. And would you recommend all of the Hotel Transylvania films?
I would recommend 1 through 3. The one they did for Amazon Prime, which was Transmorphia, was not great.
I didn't see that one.
They replaced a lot of the cast, and you can kind of tell. That's like the
I would hope
downside.
you can kind of tell. They replaced a lot of cast. You can't tell because actors are cattle and they don't matter. But
so yeah, Hotel Transylvania is a great one. And to my knowledge, at this date, I believe all of them are on Hulu, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check. Yeah, they are on Hulu right now, so those are definitely great too. Moving on down the list, we have a absolute classic, 2004's Halloween Town, the famous Disney movie channel, or Disney Channel movie.
So the Disney TV movie.
Yes.
Halloween Town.
Starring Debbie Reynolds, Kimberly J. Brown, and according to this, it was 1998, so my notes are wrong, so I'm stupid. My apologies.
Well, they're learning.
The IMDb synopsis says, when a young girl living with her secret witch mother learns she too is a witch, she must help her grandmother save Halloween Town from the evil forces. Basically, the grandma comes to visit one night, the daughter follows her onto the bus and ends up in Halloween Town, which is a town that is Halloween all year long, even more so than Nightmare Before Christmas, which actually did not make this list, mind you.
Whoa, well, it's a Christmas movie.
So
Nightmare Before Christmas is a Christmas movie. I've actually had that debate. It is okay if you want to watch it at Halloween time.
Yeah.
But it is a Christmas movie. 100%. It's a movie about Christmas.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that it doesn't have Halloween fun and feels and stuff like that. It's just like, just because Home Alone is a Christmas movie doesn't mean you can't just watch Home Alone because you love Home Alone and it makes you happy.
This is very true.
Yeah.
And to give a little bit more oomph to Halloween Town, the director is Dwayne Dunham. He was the director of Little Giants.
I love Little Giants.
I love Little Giants, too. He also did several other Disney Channel movies, such as 13th Year, Double Teamed, a lot of good ones on there. Halloween Town is on Disney Plus, of course, so you can catch it anytime. Perfect one. And the sequels aren't too bad, too. Not a big fan of Halloween Town High, but the first 3 I found pretty solid.
Wow, Hateful Dave over
Hateful
here.
Dave, indeed.
But no, so Halloween Town, that is a great suggestion. And that one's, of course, is on like Disney Plus.
Disney Plus, yeah. And then moving down the list, let's go to 1995's Casper. Of course, who doesn't love Casper? We have.
I enjoy anything about a dead child. You know,
I love this movie, but the older I get and the more I watch this, there's some seriously messed up moments in this flick.
I love Casper the Friendly Ghost, but there's always this element of sad.
Oh, it's hugely.
Because it's about a child ghost who is clearly Richie Rich. But we don't have to go into my conspiracy theories right now.
Oh, God.
What? I mean,
I've heard your conspiracy. It's not wrong. You're
it's not mine.
far off.
I just mostly stole it from The Simpsons, like all references I make.
Yeah.
But no, I love that Casper movie in particular. You're talking about the one from the late 90s with
Eric Idle, Bill Pullman, Christina Ricci, Kathy Morardi. God, I can't. And like the name and
it's a great film.
It's super, super fun. And the one thing I love about Casper is it has a little bit of everything, because even though you don't start on Halloween, you get to Halloween at the end. You have a lot of family laughs. There's a lot of good stuff with the ghost. And Bill Pullman is probably at the top of his game in this, I would say. It's one of my favorite of his performances.
And, I do want to mention, I'm not going to look at your list ahead.
Yeah.
Because that would require me to do prep for this podcast.
That's fair.
But hey, 31. It's like the David Pumpkins thing. Hey, 31 Days of Horror. They're not going to be winners. Love you, Weekly Spookies. Thank you for spending this October with us. But there is one that I'm not going to mention it yet.
Okay.
But if it's not on your list, you're going to be in trouble.
That's fair. That's entirely fair.
Like deep trouble.
We'll get there. I'm hoping.
So Casper the Friendly Ghost, it's definitely available on Peacock.
Yes.
So we're going to mention like the immediate place you could check it out.
Yeah.
That's not free, but like if you have a membership, it doesn't cost you any extra. And from there, it's up to you.
It's up to you.
All right, so what's next?
So one of the ones that you and I had a huge blast with both its original and its sequel in theaters, 2015's R.L. Stine's Goosebumps.
I loved both of the Goosebumps movies. I'm really curious what the heck this Disney series is going to be.
I'm nervous.
It doesn't seem like it's going to capture the essence.
Yeah.
This one I could talk about a lot because next week we're going to have Cameron Chaney from Library Macabre on.
Oh, awesome.
And he's going to talk about his favorite Halloween time books.
Ooh.
And then also a few of his favorite movies too. And we talk a lot about R.L. Stine and Chris Pike.
Hell yes.
And I have always loved R.L. Stine's books. I have always loved the spooky stuff that he puts out for kids and for teens and young adults. I think that the Fear Street series they did on Netflix was phenomenal.
Absolutely.
And I love this. So this version, for those who've not checked out the Goosebumps movie, this is not a Goosebumps book turned into a movie. This is a story about R.L. Stine being in hiding.
Yes.
Because his books can come to life.
Yeah.
The original manuscripts can come to life. And it's about one of those manuscripts getting loose with Slappy, the crazy dummy. And he, of course, is the most evil leader.
Yes.
In fact, one of the things I love about Slappy, watching the movie a couple more times, is Slappy's voice is also Jack Black. Jack Black plays R.L. Stine. But the reason they did that, in my opinion, is because Slappy is like R.L. Stine's id.
Yes.
It's like R.L. Stine, the worst of R.L. Stine, he wrote as Slappy.
Yeah.
So when Slappy gets loose, it's like having evil R.L. Stine loose and terrorizing a town.
What I love, he calls him Papa the entire time, and just like he keeps mocking him. But yeah, Henrik's absolutely dead on. Basically what happens is this kid moves into a new town with his mom. He lives next door to R.L. Stine, who is secretly in hiding, who also has a niece, and they suspect that something's up with Jack Black because he's just so weird, and there's been some disturbances going on at the house, so they end up going over to the house, and they end up knocking all the sealed manuscripts off the shelf and releasing basically every single Goosebumps monster you could hope.
And if you are a long-time reader of the Goosebumps books, so much pays off.
Yeah.
But I don't want to spoil anything. And that's available on Netflix in the United States. All of these are in the United States. If you're somewhere else, you got to do the Googling yourself.
And I will say, before we get deeper into it, that Peacock especially is unleashing an October lineup that a lot of these are going to be falling under too, hopefully.
Yeah, Peacock has a lot going on this Halloween.
So Goosebumps 2015, moving on. Let's go back to a classic with The Ghost and Mr. Chicken.
Oh, man. Don Knotts.
Yes.
Well, what do you mean you're a ghost?
So, 1966, we have a timid typester hasn't a ghost of a chance of becoming a reporter until he decides to solve a murder mystery and ends up spending a fright-filled night in a haunted house. This is Don Knotts at his peak for his cinematic career, because everybody knew him, of course, as Barney on Andy Griffith's show.
Oh, of course, yeah.
His Shakiest Gun in the West series, the Reluctant Astronaut, The Incredible Mr. Lippet, those are all great, but The Ghost and Mr. Chicken is one of my absolute favorites that was always on Halloween growing up as a kid.
Well, he didn't do any big Christmas movies, did he?
Not that I can think of.
So this is like his only evergreen film.
Yeah.
Because it's always pops up around Halloween. I had a teacher when I was in middle school or high school who would always show the Ghost and Mr. Chicken to reward us if we got our work done early in October.
Awesome.
We'd watch like a chunk of it, and then we'd watch the next chunk the next day.
That is so awesome.
And I've always loved the Ghost and Mr. Chicken. Last year, Sven Gulli showed it. And I actually dropped everything to watch it.
Hell yeah. And also what I love about it is Alan Rafkin is the director on it. He was the director of 48 episodes of the Gary Shandling Show, not to mention Coach, Murphy Brown.
It's Gary Shandling's show.
My apologies.
It's not the Gary Shandling Show. It's Gary Shandling's show.
Yes, my apologies.
The title is as meta as the film. But yeah, Alan Rafkin, he did a lot of great stuff. And where is that available right now?
So the Ghost of Mr. Chicken is available to rent on Prime. It is not streaming anywhere in regards of free.
Quote-unquote free,
yes.
With a subscription. So Ghost of Mr. Chicken, but you could definitely rent it wherever you like to rent your movies.
And it's been a cheap Blu-ray for a while, too. I know for a while it's been one of those you could pick up for like $9.
And that one's worth owning.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt.
So, Henrik, moving on into the family category, a questionable family title, but I think you won't argue, 1987's The Monster Squad.
Well, if your kid doesn't mind just a sprinkling of homophobic slurs.
Yes, there is that.
Then you'll be fine. Well, I mean, you know what? I mean, if you're listening to Weekly Spooky, and you are if you're listening to this.
This is true.
I'm a big believer that if a bad guy says a bad thing, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the kid who says the F slur.
Yes.
is not a good guy.
No, he is
We're not rooting for him. We're not happy that he said that to the fat kid.
He does immediately get his just desserts, though, too.
Literally.
Yeah.
They are just and desserts.
It's true.
No, so Monster Squad is a very special film to me.
Yes, it is. I'll let you take it.
I have been watching Monster Squad religiously since maybe I was 6 years old. I had a VHS of it that broke because I watched it so much. I'd watch it all year round. I've always loved Monster Squad, and I remember when it was impossible to find because it was out of print. You could only find the VHS and then bootlegs. Yeah. And I had a bootleg. I had a bootleg DVD I got at a convention off the Laserdisc.
Oh, wow.
Looked fine, you know, but it wasn't. I am a stern believer that you don't buy bootlegs unless no one gives you another option. If a film is completely unavailable to watch in any way, shape, or form, a movie is unavailable in any way to watch, I'm talking you can't even rent it online, which there are movies like that, then I don't feel bad at all downloading it illegally or buying a bootleg, as long as it's reasonably priced. I'm fine with it. But I also, when Monster Squad came out on DVD... And I found out it was coming really early because I had a buddy who worked on that DVD.
Yes, you did.
This shows my age. I ran to the nearest Best Buy when I lived in Jersey when it came out. Yeah. I ran to that nearest Best Buy that I'd never been to before because when I lived in Jersey, I didn't have a lot of money. Fair. So I was not going to I went to Best Buy twice. When I lived in Jersey, I went to Best Buy once to buy Monster Squad and once to buy a GPS because I almost got lost in the Pine Barrens and was never heard from again.
Oh my God.
So no, for real. I got so lost in the Pine Barrens driving that I actually had that moment where I was like, at what point do you just never be found? Yeah. So when I finally made it, I was driving down a road. I was actually going to see my buddy Michelle from Monthly Spooky. I was driving down this road and I was like, God, I don't know where I am. No GPS. I'm using MapQuest directions printed out. And I'm driving down the road and I'm like, where am I? And I'm like, well, if I keep driving, I'll find something. So I'm driving and the Pine Barrens are all around me and all this stuff. It's nothing. So I keep going because it can't be nothing forever.
Yeah.
And the road turns to dirt.
Oh, God.
And then it dead ends in front of an abandoned factory with all the windows broken out and a car in front with no tires.
Oh, God.
And that was when I just kind of brushed my hands and went, well, time to die. Luckily, I had a half a tank of gas. Yeah. So I was like, well, time to turn around and drive twice as fast.
Yeah.
Because there was no sign of life at all. So I drove and literally, the moment I found a light, I just turned left and was like, now I will find something. And then I found a gas station because I would call Michelle and be like, I don't know what, like, I'm lost. And she'd be like, where are you? And I'd be like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm knocking on death's door. Oh my gosh. Chicano is sleeping with his head on the air conditioner vent.
He is.
It is so cute. His face is all smushed up on the air conditioning vent. He is out cold. He knows it's nap time when Papa's in the studio.
That's fair.
But no, Monster Squad, truly love it. But you know what I did the day I came home with it on DVD?
What's that?
I watched it, obviously, in my apartment. And then it came out, I want to say, at the beginning of September.
Mm-hmm.
Because my birthday's in September.
Yeah.
And when I went home for my birthday, I brought it and I got Mom to watch it with me in the living room.
That's
and Mom
awesome.
and Mom was like, I remember you watching this again and again and again and again. And I was like, well, you're finally going to have to watch it. And when it was over, she was like, that's a good movie.
Yeah.
So Monster Squad is my top pick on this list, too.
100%. It's a great one. And also, I wanted to throw it extra love because not only is it getting a re-release soon on 4K, which won't be in time for Halloween, unfortunately. But it's getting a lot of love, even more so the last, I would say, decade. And especially with the Wolfman's Got Nards documentaries, you kind of got to hear the story of it. And this is a movie that unfairly got matched at release date with The Lost Boys, which shadowed it entirely.
Yeah, Lost Boys was it's not just, I don't think Lost Boys is necessarily a better film.
Yeah.
But it had a lot more money.
Yeah.
It was a mainstream movie. It was made by a director that was already described as a visionary, Joel Schumacher. So when you have all those things against it, and it had friggin' the Coreys, it had everything.
It had everything for it.
And that's not to say anything negative about The Lost Boys, because The Lost Boys is a great film.
Yeah.
But it just had everything going for it. And The Monster Squad was this little TriStar movie made by the guy who made Night of the Creeps, and people will be like, what's Night of the Creeps?
We might get to it.
Well, I'm just saying, I love Monster Squad, I love Night of the Creeps, but neither of them were appreciated when they came out the way they are now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Monster Squad is my pick too, but let's move on before I talk about it even more.
Streaming on Paramount Plus and Pluto right now. You can find Monster Squad readily available.
Don't go away. Weekly Spooky will be right back.
Moving on, 1991, The Addams Family.
I revisited those last year.
They're so good.
They are friggin' flawless.
Yeah.
Addams Family and Addams Family Values, which is a good November movie
is.
because it has a Thanksgiving scene. But Raul Julia completely, I've always loved the Addams Family as characters. I'm not going to be one of those people, I read the comics. I don't think anybody read the comics anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, not that's still alive.
Yeah.
The comics, have you ever tried to read them?
No.
They're just odd. I mean, I don't mean like that they're not good because they're odd, but I mean, they're not like a normal comic strip.
Okay.
The characters aren't named. They almost never say anything.
Yeah.
They're clever, but the essence of the Addams Family came later.
Yeah.
With the television series and John Astin playing Gomez, the first Gomez. Oh. I love that series. Quick side note about the Addams Family. Watch the Pluto channel for the Addams Family.
Yeah.
It is a very wholesome show.
Oh, 100%.
Instead of being like Leave It to Beaver and stuff where like, you know, dad's working and mom's home cleaning and stuff. Morticia and Gomez are always home and they're always doing stuff with their kids. One of my favorite moments in the original TV series is when Gomez and Pugsley, they're setting off rockets in the living room. I always love that they would do outside activities inside, which is extra funny when you consider that probably had more to do with the fact that they were filming a sitcom in a studio. Yeah. So it was like, well, what if we just have them do all that stuff in the mansion? And they're like, oh, that's funny. Like who would play tackle football in the mansion? Who would shoot off rockets? But I just remember Gomez is shooting rockets with little Pugsley in the living room, and the rocket of course goes up and the camera shakes and like crap falls down. Yeah. And then Pugsley looks up and goes, it went into Fester's room. And then Gomez goes, too bad he's not home. He would have loved that.
I do remember that.
But that all to say, so Astin was a phenomenal Gomez, but he was a very literally like cigar chewing, oddball American character. Raul Julia took Gomez and gave him this mysterious Europeanness. I mean, he was Puerto Rican. Yeah. And Gomez Addams, the origins of the Addams Family is that they're supposed to be Castilian. So they're supposed to be a type of Spanish. And, but the reason Gomez was named Gomez is because, whatever his name was, the Addams guy who invented the Addams Family. Yeah. He didn't know a lot about Spanish culture. So he was like, I want them to be Castilian. So he gave him a surname as his first name. Before Gomez Addams was a name, nobody's first name was Gomez. Yeah. Gomez is a last name.
That's fair.
That's fine. I'm just saying like kind of a funny thing. So Raul Julia, they hand him this role. Yeah. I believe Raul Julia we were robbed when he died young.
Absolutely.
As a culture, because he was truly one of the best actors ever. We were just talking about, you just watched Frankenstein Unbound.
Yeah, I
he
love that movie.
is so amazing as Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And it's not that when he does his version of somebody like Gomez Addams or Dr. Frankenstein, it's not that he does them as like a Puerto Rican guy. They're completely new. And he steps into them like they are a suit.
Yeah.
He was Gomez Addams, and Gomez Addams was eccentric and had that little Euro trash kind of Hispanic flair.
Yes.
And I love it. I love it. And I'm not going to talk about Frankenstein Unbound a bunch, but there's a moment where somebody says, "You're insane." And he looks at them with the most insane look ever to express that he's like, "How dare you call me insane?"
It's so good. God,
like,
it's so
how
good.
dare you call me insane? I'll murder you. You know? But no, so Addams Family, the original movie from 91, is not only a great film, but it always makes me think of Burger King, because that's where I bought my VHS copy in 1991. But or two, I think it was two when it actually was.
I always forget about the opening when you have the carolers singing and then they just dump the boiling water on them, which I love that opening.
We don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's just a witch's brew. It's just a bubbling cauldron. Yeah, and they don't even dump it like in a mean way. It like pans up and they're just like, oh boy. I think that their perspective, knowing the Addams Family from a lifetime of fandom, is that they were like, well, you have to give the carolers a treat. So Mama made up a nice batch of, Eye of Newt, whatever. So where can people watch that?
So Paramount Plus is where you can find the Addams Family.
Okay, cool.
And I believe it's also where you can find Values as well too. Addams Family Values.
I was gonna say, this is not a commercial. They do not kick us any money. But no, Addams Family. I can't imagine a better, like, if you're a millennial like me and to a lesser extent you, younger millennial, I am elder.
Elder millennial.
I am the elder millennial. Bow to me as I had a credit score that was decent. Anyway, but no, I just...
It's a great flick.
If I had kids... I would be dying to show them Addams Family.
Absolutely. So moving down the list, let's go to 1988 with a little classic that we know by the name of Beetlejuice with Michael Keaton. Beetlejuice. Don't
do it! Sorry. I couldn't resist.
So 1988, we have the Tim Burton classic Beetlejuice, Michael Keaton, Alec Baldwin, Gina Davis, Catherine O'Hare. I mean, the names go on, and this is just a really Tim Burton... to his form with a Halloween film, but also just a pretty fun movie with some pretty dark notes.
Well, I would call it very teetering on being a family movie.
Oh, is it because of nice fucking model?
That's just one of the things. Are you kidding? You think that the part where he says,
as my laptop shows Dante's Inferno at the strip club?
Yeah, like the strip club. What about the office with all the dead people?
All the dead people.
And people smoking and then exhaling it through their throats and stuff.
It's a very timid PG, we'll say.
It's a very morbid, fun ride. I wouldn't call any of it harmful.
No, not at all.
I think that you have to be a cool parent to let your kid watch them when you're younger.
I think so. Yeah, and it's got some scary moments in it too, between Beetlejuice turning into a snake. I mean, there's a lot of stuff with the underworld that you kind of get a taste for the dark side that Burton loves to flaunt himself in. My
favorite thing about Beetlejuice is the idea that the afterlife is just another bureaucracy.
Yeah,
it's like literally when you die. If you somehow haven't seen Beetlejuice, when you die in the world of Beetlejuice, you just go to the BMV and wait to get assigned your death assignment or whatever. Like, it's ridiculous. But Beetlejuice, a lot of fun. Also, another one, if you're a millennial and haven't watched Beetlejuice in a while or have never seen it, you get to see baby Alec Baldwin.
Yes, you do.
You get to see like everybody's like a little
baby
child.
Winona Ryder.
Yeah, she's literally like playing a teenager. I don't know how actually old she was. She's probably 20.
Yeah, probably 20.
Great film. Holds up every time I watch it. But every time I watch it, I do have that moment where I'm like, when I was a kid, they put that on TV?
Dude, Comedy Central showed it all the time, and I swear, like, growing up, my parents watched it to the point where we actually recorded it off of Comedy Central. So for the longest time, I only knew about the TV cut. So for the first time I ever saw, like, the uncut, like, on HBO or something, and he did the nice fucking model, I was just like, oh my God!
I had friends who I'm not sure if it was Beetlejuice specifically, but I had friends who, when I was growing up, they had favorite movies that their parents would only let them have the one they taped off of TV.
Yeah, no, I had a couple of those myself.
Yeah, do you remember any of them?
I know one of them was The Lost Boys for the longest time.
Oh man, how do they cut out for commercials all of the homoerotic subtext in Lost Boys?
And I think the other one, if I'm not mistaken, I think the other one was Halloween H2O, because right around my my mid-teens, I got my VCR in my room and had access to cable, so I would start taping stuff like I taped Chris Angel Mind Freak episodes.
Of course you did. You were just trying to get tips on how to put pants on that tight. Are you ready? Are you ready?
So Beetlejuice is available to rent on Prime Vudu. It's not streaming anywhere at this time for free again, but you can find Beetlejuice anywhere. Any Halloween section that actually still has videos, DVDs and whatnot in stores, you can probably find it too.
Oh, I mean, that one's definitely a classic.
Yeah.
Definitely glad it was on the list.
Moving on to another classic, one of my personal favorites, although my love for it has lessened a bit just because of the hype, but Hocus Pocus from 1993.
Wow, you're turning on your beloved Hocus Pocus.
There's issues I have, but we'll get to that. Basically, I adore Hocus Pocus. This is one of those movies that was brought into my childhood by my grandmother, who is still with us, and I actually still have watched Hocus Pocus with her every now and then. But I remember verbatim, like, she had told me about this movie Hocus Pocus, and at this point, like, Disney Channel was like the premium channel, and she had it at her house.
Yeah, we didn't have it.
We watched it together one Halloween, and I just fell in love with it. And then I remember, like, in summer at one point, like when I was like 6 or 7, I was staying with her while my parents were on vacation, and we went to Target, and I got the VHS of it, and we watched it again together. So Hocus Pocus is the story of a teenage boy named Max and his little sister that moved to Salem, and they end up awakening the Sanderson sisters, which are these witches that were executed in the 17th century. And the Sanderson sisters want to suck all the lives out of the children in Salem to basically make sure that they can stay alive and live forever. There's some hijinks that ensue, of course. It's a great Halloween movie.
It sounds like a hijinks thing.
Yeah, right?
Let's drain the children of the life force. Whoop, I slipped on a banana peel.
So you've got Bette Midler as Winifred, who's the main sister. Sarah Jessica Parker as Sarah. Kathy Najimy as Mary. Directed by Kenny Ortega, and famously has some writing in it by Mick Garris, even though he says his original version was a little bit different. Hocus Pocus is just a great one for the family. I don't need to go on and on about it. I think everybody knows Hocus Pocus.
I think it's pretty. I'll tell you. So when I was a kid, Hocus Pocus was like what we watched in school around Halloween.
I could see that.
So, like, I was hardcore. So, it'd be like, it's Halloween. Should we watch Hocus Pocus? And I'd be like, nah, we're watching Monster Squad. But I've always found it charming.
It's great. And honestly, my biggest beef with it is just it has become the film for every TV channel, especially Freeform. Like, they've done the Hocus Pocus specials. Hocus Pocus 2 came out last year on Disney Plus, and I watched it, and I enjoyed it, but they've already announced 3, and I'm just like, we can stop. You're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. But Hocus Pocus on Disney Plus, it's also going to be coming back into theaters this October as well, so keep an eye out for that if you want to see it. Moving on, we have 2001, one of my personal underrated favorites.
2001: A Space Odyssey?
Not 2001: A Space Odyssey. We have 2001's When Good Ghouls Go Bad.
I love When Good Ghouls Go Bad. Did that premiere on Fox Family?
Yes, it did. ABC Family. It was a ABC Family premiere. We're talking Christopher Lloyd.
Are you sure it was? Was it ABC Family by the time it premiered, or was it still Fox?
It might have been Fox Family at that point.
There's a whole documentary on Fox Family on YouTube. You need to watch it. It's like an hour and a half long because it has to be.
Jeez.
There's so much. They started that channel and did it different than everywhere else. They were just like, okay, so we're going to start this channel, and then we're going to and then they had venture capital come in, and they raised like $200 million. Like, okay, and $200 million to make all the programming. And it was like, what? And so that's why the programming was so bizarrely its own thing.
That makes sense.
Was they just spent money to make it. And I remember, I mean, ABC Family was fine, but Fox Family was where it was at.
It had a lot
but I remember
stuff.
when Good Ghouls Go Bad was on that channel, I don't remember which era. But When Good Ghouls Go Bad, starring Christopher Lloyd,
based on a story by R.L. Stein, mind you.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
So When Good Ghouls Go Bad is the story of Walker Falls, which is this.
It's hard to say it fast. We're both so caffeinated. When Good Ghouls Go Bad. When Good Ghouls Go Bad.
This small town of Walker Falls, which is kind of like the Norman Rockwell town. It used to be a very famous town for Halloween. They had a candy factory and all this stuff, and you find out that an unfortunate tragedy basically made the town believe that it was cursed. And so for the last decades and decades, they have not celebrated Halloween in this town. Christopher Lloyd plays the father of one of the guys that has moved back to the town to open the candy factory. Long story short, something happens and maybe the curse comes back into play. Maybe the person who set the curse wasn't telling the truth. A lot of stuff with it. It is the perfect Halloween movie. It's so family friendly. It's got a lot of humor. It's got a lot of just not scary moments, but unsettling moments with zombies and whatnot.
Oh,
too.
yeah. No, definitely.
It's just a very, very fun movie. Unfortunately, you're probably only going to be able to find it on YouTube, or you're going to have to buy a DVD like I did off Amazon.
Yeah, it got lost in the ether very easily.
Yeah.
Sadly.
It's a great one, and it's one that I do not think gets enough love. So if you can find it, you are going to have an absolute blast with it.
Yeah, watch When Good Ghouls Go Bad. You've got my stamp of approval on that, too.
All right, moving on down, we have The Witches from 1990, another one that my grandma showed me that, for one, scared the absolute shit out of me, and two, I've just come to love this movie so much. And actually, if you're wondering why that title sounds familiar, it's because, I can't think of his name, did a remake of it, Back to the Future.
Bob Zemeckis?
Zemeckis did a remake of it for HBO Max.
Oh, he was the one behind that.
That was the one, he was the one behind it.
Yeah, because I got confused because The Witches and Hocus Pocus both got sequel remake kind of things all at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And The Witches is based off of a story by Roald Dahl. It's about a young boy who stumbles upon a witch convention at a hotel. He is with his grandmother after his parents have unfortunately passed in a car accident. She takes him on a vacation. He stumbles upon this convention of the witches, and the lead witch is the great Angelica Houston, who, of course, played Morticia in The Addams Family. And basically what happens is they turn the kids into mice because they're trying to suck their life out again to basically live forever. And this whole thing ensues with two kids being turned into mice. They try to defeat the witches with the help of the grandma. It's super scary. It's super fun. And Mr. Bean's in it, of all things, too.
Yeah, the special effects in that movie are very, child scarring level.
Oh god, the reveal because basically the witches wear the skin that they have and they take it off to reveal their true form, and at the beginning of the grand high ceremony they all reveal themselves, and it is pure nightmare fuel.
Yeah, no, it's really pretty terrifying.
It is very, very terrifying, but it's a great one. The Witches is available right now as of this recording on Prime. You can rent it. You can get it on Vudu as well. It may or may not be coming to Max soon for October.
Yeah, it might be on there.
So you keep an eye for that.
The Witches, and that's another one that's definitely fun for your kids, but maybe for the kids who can handle something a little bit scary.
I got in trouble for showing that movie to my cousins when I was younger. So moving on, one of my absolute personal favorites that I discovered for my times of being a manager at FYE, Paranorman from 2012.
Yeah, I've heard good things. I've never watched it.
You haven't? Oh my God. Paranorman is the story of a misunderstood boy who takes on ghosts, zombies, and grown-ups to save his town from a centuries-old curse. Basically, his family doesn't resent him, but they don't understand that he can literally talk to his dead grandma who's sitting in the living room all the time. He goes around town and you start to see him talking to people, and then the camera pans. It's an animated movie, and then you see all these green ghosts in the street talking to him.
Yeah.
And it is the sweetest movie.
I've seen a little bit of it because my good buddy Andrew, his daughter, and he both love that movie. So I've seen a little bit of it, I really like it.
Yeah, directed by Chris Butler and Sam Fell. It's got the story of basically these. You have Paranorman. He has this friend, and they decide that they're going to solve the curse. So they set out to basically find out what is going on with the town. People are going mad. There's a witch curse put on it, and they're trying to set things right by also using the ghosts that are coming back. And it's just a really sweet movie. It has me bawling at the end when there's a huge reveal as to who the curse is actually upon. It's just a great time, and it's perfect for the whole family. Available on Stars, and you can also rent it on Prime and Vudu as well right now.
Yeah, Rachel will kill me because I still haven't watched it as a whole because I know she loves that movie too.
It's so good. And then ending out the family scares category, we are going to go with an absolute classic, personal favorite, 1974's Young Frankenstein, the Mel Brooks classic starring Gene Wilder.
You think that's a kid-friendly movie?
I think it is because I personally was shown it as a kid.
I mean, fair.
And I mean, it's black and white, so it's one of those that you're going to have to get their attention for.
Okay, at first I thought you meant it's black and white, so how offensive, how offensive could it be? I was like, you know what else is in black and white? Birth of a Nation.
I knew you were going to go
that one, and I'm not showing that to little kids.
So, if you're not familiar with the story of Young Frankenstein, which shame on you, it is the retelling of Frankenstein with Gene Wilder is playing the Dr. Frankenstein role. He finds out that his grandfather's passed, and he has to go to this castle to basically set the affair straight. Stumbles into his research. You've got an amazing cast of Wilder, I'm blanking on his name, the guy that played Marty Feldman.
Yes.
You've got Peter Boyle, Madeline Kahn, Cloris Leachman, Terry Garr, Kenneth Mars, and this is one of those movies that the more you watch it, the more subtle the humor picks up on. There's something funny I find in this every time.
Oh, the movie's highly layered.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw it in the theater a couple years back.
I have not
the first
seen
time
it
in forever.
God, I really
and
want to.
I really enjoyed it, although I struggle when it gets to the end with all the performances and the putting on the Ritz.
Putting
and
on
stuff.
the Ritz is
gets a little bit out there.
Does jump the shark a bit.
There's a point in Mel Brooks' career where everybody was like, he can do no wrong, so they let him do a lot of wrong.
Yeah. I like I like one of his most wrong movies that people don't care for, which is Dracula Dead and Loving It, which almost made this list, but not enough.
Oh, was it not in black and white?
So, Young Frankenstein currently streaming on HBO Max. Definitely check it out if you haven't. It's a perfect movie for Halloween. All right, we are finishing up with family scares and moving on to seasonal rewatches.
Hold on.
What?
You didn't mention.
Oh God, what did I not mention?
Coco.
Didn't put Coco on there.
Now, I will admit, Coco is technically a Dia de los Muertos movie.
Yes.
But...
Oh, my God. Now I'm going to cry. Thanks for bringing up Coco.
I love Coco. It's one of those few Disney movies that I adore.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Coco is about Dia de los Muertos, which is the Day of the Dead, the Mexican Day of the Dead. And it's about a little boy who accidentally crosses into the other world where all the people who've passed away are and ends up needing the help of his grandfather, who he never met, his abuelo. And I actually had not seen that. I saw it during the pandemic. Rachel showed it to me on her Disney Plus.
Oh, cool.
I cried my eyes out
I'm sure.
the whole movie. But to me, I mean, Day of the Dead is very similar to Halloween.
Yeah.
And it is the day after Halloween. So I'm going to say my honorable mention for family-friendly scares is Coco. And you can watch it on Disney Plus or Prime Video or wherever you'll find it.
It's actually coming back into theaters for October as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need to cry in front of people.
So,
You're not safe yet. Weekly Spooky will be right back.
finishing off with family scares, we're moving on to seasonal rewatches. Now, these are horror films that don't necessarily relate to Halloween, but they are ones that I find myself revisiting, at least for October, if not September. First one is one that I found, like, I can't remember which podcast it was, but somebody was talking about it, and it's called Curse of the Dead from 1959.
Was it the Joe Rogan Experience?
It was not the Joe Rogan Experience.
Was it, I can't think of another podcast.
Curse of the Undead is basically the story of a vampire in the Old West. It's from 1959. It stars Eric Fleming and Christopher Palante.
Oh,
It
wow.
is, while a malady. While a malady is claiming the lives of young women in a western town, a sinister gunslinger for hire, Drake Roby, is a real vampire, and it's up to Preacher Dan to save the town and girlfriend Dolores Carter. It's a very simple movie. You don't really see any on-screen violence that I can recall, and to my knowledge, too, you don't ever actually see him like vamp out, but they always hint on it with shadows, the way it's shot.
It's a black and white one?
Yeah, from 1959. 1 hour and 19 minutes as well, and it's a very quick watch, and it's a lot of fun. It's one that I find myself revisiting every
I have not seen that. I want to watch it.
I will bring it over, absolutely. It's definitely one that you can find easily, too, because it is currently on Prime Video, and it is also on Tubi, so easily available. Curse of the Undead, cannot recommend it enough.
Nice, that's a nice deep cut.
Yeah. Moving on to another deep cut, one that has kind of gotten some love in the last couple years thanks to Shudder, 2000's The Convent, which is the movie from Mike Mendez. This is the story of a group of college students break into an abandoned convent and become possessed by demonic spirits. Has a huge Night of the Demons feel to it. But what I love about this movie is it's got a lot of humor to it, but the opening is watching this woman go into this church and just beat the shit out of nuns in regards to like blowing them away and all this stuff.
Mendez is hilarious. He's
Yeah.
a very talented director. I mean, the thing I always think of when I think of him is Big Ass Spider.
Yes.
Because what a title.
And The Convent is readily available on multiple, including Shudder, AMC Plus, Plex, Freevee, Pluto.
You should make a note. You and I need to watch this Halloween.
Okay.
We need to watch The Undead.
Okay.
Or Curse of the Undead.
Yep.
And we need to watch that.
Okay.
Because I've not seen it. And I
Okay.
want to watch it.
Absolutely. And moving on to another one you haven't seen, but you're kind of hesitant on.
You don't know me.
Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon from 2006.
Yeah, like...
I was going to say, go ahead.
but not.
Behind the Mask was an Anchor Bay release that took a lot of people by storm because it's done in the way of a mockumentary where they basically are following around a psychopath in this small town. It follows Leslie Vernon, who was the tragic victim of a wrongful doing murder, apparently,
like the Cropsey legend.
Yeah, like Cropsey a
which
lot.
they based Nightmare or Friday the 13th on.
Yeah.
And stuff like, although kind of Nightmare on Elm Street as well, because they did burn Freddy and they burned Cropsey.
And they referenced Michael Myers and Jason and everybody in it.
Do they mention just Michael Myers, or is it like, do they go like, yeah, baby? Or...
So, Behind the Mask is basically the story of a killer that decides to recruit this camera crew to follow him around, make this documentary of him coming back on his anniversary for this big kill. He's telling them about the virgin he's stalking. He goes over the kills, the places, goes over the cardio he has to do to make it look like he's running when he's walking when he's actually trying to run.
Yeah, because he has to run when they're not looking.
Yep, all that stuff. And one of my biggest favorites about it is Scott Wilson is in it, the guy who played Herschel on The Walking Dead.
Yeah, and he was in The Host.
Yeah, he was also in The Host. He plays this former big killer. They never really name him, but he's basically the mentor for Leslie. And he's got 2 scenes in the movie where he basically steals the show, where when they first introduce him, they go to find him in this field. He's been in a sensory deprivation tank for 3 days.
Okay, all right. That's pretty funny.
But you've got Robert Englund makes an appearance. Zelda Rudenstein makes an appearance. Nathan Basil, huge shout out to him, as Leslie Vernon. Hugely charismatic killer that you fall in love with, and then the movie takes a huge swerve at the last half hour. Really, really worth it. Behind the Mask is currently available on AMC Plus. You can also get it readily available from Shout Factory. They put out a beautiful edition of it a couple years back as well.
All right. Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. I just have not gotten around to watching it. A couple of my friends disliked it enough to keep me from watching it, but I am curious.
I get it. So moving on to 2007's Brutal Massacre, a comedy.
Really? That's a Halloweeny for you.
It is, because I just the overall feel of it, even though like it doesn't really have any Halloween vibes to it, it's just a fun making of a scary movie where everything goes wrong.
Yeah, see, the scariest part of that movie is that it reminds me of my own life.
Being on sets and everything now, seeing that movie, I totally feel it.
Brutal Massacre Comedy is one of Dave and I's biggest favorites.
Yes.
Did you introduce me to it? Or did I introduce
you?
No,
I totally did, because I think, did I show it to you when I got my Blu-ray, or have we already watched it?
No, we'd already
point?
watched it.
Okay, yeah, because I had the DVD. Another one from Anchor Bay that kind of snuck out in 2007. I found it through Fangoria, and then one of my good buddies back in Troy, I actually stayed at his house one night and we watched it.
I remember when we watched Brutal Massacre.
You do?
Gunnar died when Gunnar Hansen passed away.
Yeah,
Gunnar Hansen, he played Leatherface in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
He has a major, amazing role in the film.
Yeah.
And I saw clips of it, when people were doing dedications to Gunnar.
Yeah.
And I went, man, I want to watch Brutal Massacre. And you're like, oh, bro.
That sounds like
you brought it over. Yeah.
So it's done by Steve Mena, who did the Malevolence series. So Malevolence 1, 2, Bereavement, and I can't remember, I think the third one's called Killer. This is a straight up comedy done as a mockumentary again. You have David Naughton that's playing this famed horror director who's kind of on the outs, named Harry Penderecki, and he's trying to shoot this film called Brutal Massacre. That's kind of his comeback movie.
Which is extra funny, because like he'll be like, and we want to make this movie, it's about love and finding things and da-da-da, and they're like, oh, that sounds great, what's it called? Brutal Massacre. And then they just don't talk to him anymore.
No, they do not. But Brutal Massacre is a seasonal revisit for me, like I said, just because it's the making of a horror film. So there's a lot of references to other horror films. You have a lot of appearances by like Brian O'Halloran, Henrik mentioned Gunnar Hansen. You got a bunch of people in it. Ken Faree, who has a hilarious spoiler alert, hilarious death in it. So it's one of those that is very underrated. I wish more eyes would get on it, especially with that Blu-ray release. But you can find it right now on Tubi, and if you really like it, definitely check out that Blu-ray release. It's got some great bonus material and a decent transfer as well.
Yeah, Brutal Massacre is a hilarious movie. I think about Gunnar Hansen's character and laugh multiple times a month.
Yeah, it's so good. So moving on, we have 1986's Night of the Creeps from the same director of Monster Squad, Fred Decker. Comes a movie that I feel like just embodies Halloween, even though I don't think it has a single thing to do.
Even though, isn't it a prom night?
It's a prom night, but like just the way the monsters are and like the overall
zombies,
feel of it. Yeah.
This is a alien invasion zombie thing.
Yeah.
So these little slugs, alien slugs, jump into your mouth or potentially other orifices and then take you over, and basically you are walking dead until you fill with more because they breed inside you, and then you fall on the ground and splash open, and then more of them are loose, and it's it is a fun one. It's the first film by Fred Decker of Monster Squad.
Yes.
He made Night of the Creeps, and then he made Monster Squad
right after.
And Night of the Creeps, I always said that Monster Squad was like his kids movie, and Night of the Creeps was like his young adult movie.
Yeah.
Because Night of the Creeps is about college kids, and Monster Squad's about kids in barely junior high.
And what I love about Night of the Creeps is Tom Atkins has a just killer role in it. I mean, he crafted the line "Thrill Me," which you've probably seen on T-shirts and seen in all the compilations of horror. But he plays this cop that basically, I can't remember if did he catch the axe murderer?
Yeah, but in the axe murderer was hacking up his girlfriend, his college or his high school girlfriend or whatever.
And the axe murderer at one point gets resurrected, and Tom has to face him. It's such a good flick.
Well, because he killed him.
Yeah,
he killed the axe murderer and buried him.
Yes, he did.
So when he comes back, he has to face the fact that he murdered someone.
Yes,
that movie has so many great moments. Atkins plays, the term hard-boiled cop?
Yeah.
He's like overboiled cop. Like, because he's just, there's that whole part where he's like, so that's a really interesting story and all, but aside from wanting to confess to a murder, why are you telling it to us?
Yeah.
And he's like, honestly, Spanky, I don't know. I love that movie. It's so good.
Screaming like banshees.
Like a banshees. Yeah, there's a character in it. He like when the cop is describing back to him, he's a janitor at the college where these guys ran by. He says, and you said these boys ran by screaming like banshees. For whatever reason, this Asian immigrant guy just cannot get enough of the term screaming like banshees. He just finds it really funny. So every time we see him following up, he's just like screaming like a banshees.
So Night of the Creeps is available to rent on Prime and Vudu. I also recommend, it's one of those that if you like collecting movies or owning them, that's one to pick up. You've got a version that Lionsgate put out some years ago, and then recently Shout Factory, I think, actually put it on 4K actually too.
And you probably don't remember. It used to be that was really hard to find.
That was a super hard one to find because I remember the day I went to Walmart and bought it.
It was on USA Network a lot.
Yeah.
When I was very young, that's how I remember it.
It's a absolute blast. So Night of the Creeps from 1986, you cannot go wrong.
Oh, and also as a kid, I like a very young kid, like 8 years old, I got Night of the Creeps and Fright Night confused.
I got Night of the Creeps and Night of the Demons confused.
Well, that's stupid. You were a stupid child.
Well, Night of the Creeps always throws me off because it starts with that alien scene that I always forget about, where they're chasing the alien through the ship.
They're literally aliens.
I know, but I always forget that.
But I remember one time, and I love Fright Night a lot, but I remember I was a kid and I was hanging out with all my dad's biker buddies' kids, and they were like, we're going to watch friggin' Fright Night. And I was like, oh man. And I went in and it was just this like movie about a guy next door to a vampire, and I was like, oh man, I was hoping for the movie where like the heads are breaking open and the worms are going everywhere, and little did I know, just a few years later I'd be like, oh man, Fright Night's the shit.
Yes, it is. So sticking in the 80s, we're going to go up to 81 with House by the Cemetery, the Lucio Fulci classic.
Oh yeah,
I put this on my list solely because this is a good haunted house that's not a haunted house is the best way to put it.
You're putting it in there because of that time we decided to watch it at midnight on a Saturday, and it creeped us out horribly.
This is one of those movies I have watched on midnight multiple times, and it does always creep me out. I actually got to see it for the first time at Horrorama, like my first Horrorama ever, now that I think about it. And I remember our good friend, who's no longer with us, Andy Kopp, at the end, literally the lights come up and he's like, all right, who got it? Who understands it?
I love House by the Cemetery, but I think I'd bought the Blu-ray, right?
Yeah, you did.
And we were hanging out. So for those who are not in the know, hanging out at my house and watching movies is different than hanging out at other people's houses. Because I've got a giant projector screen, 120-inch screen that projects in full HD, and with 5.1 surround. So when we say like, let's watch a really creepy movie at midnight, I mean, it's like you're in the local art house theater has 2 rooms, and the second room's screen is the size of my screen. Yeah. So we got really creeped out. I remember when that movie was over, that was when I went, friggin' Fulci's just the man.
Yeah, absolutely. House by the Cemetery is the story of a New England home terrorized by a series of murders, unbeknownst to the new owners that a gruesome secret is also hiding in the basement. This movie has a little bit of everything. You've got monsters, you've got a hilarious scene with a bat that attacks and a guy driving scissors through his hand and through the bat.
Yes.
You've got a great score. Lucio Fulci has this as part of his Gates of Hell trilogy, so you've got the Beyond City of the Living Dead, and then this, right?
Yeah.
So House by the Cemetery great. It's a gory, sleazy romp at times, and also just has a really, really strong ending that kind of leaves you going, what did I just watch?
I love it. I think that was the film that really made me realize he's a genius at setting a dread feeling. You can watch House by the Cemetery at late at night is where it'll really get you.
Absolutely.
But you can watch it anytime. It'll just, the way he moves the camera and shows people's facial expressions alone will creep you out. That's a movie that I'm always in the mood to watch.
And you'll also get tired of the name Bob after a while, too.
Oh, poor Bob.
You can find House by the Cemetery currently streaming on Shudder, AMC Plus, and also Full Moon. If you are a collector and want to own it, Blue Underground has a great 4K of it. I think Arrow's getting ready to release one. And if you want to get a Blu-ray, you can also find that from Blue Underground as well. That is a fantastic movie. I cannot recommend it enough. And at 86 minutes, you're basically in and out, and a lot of carnage happens.
House by the Cemetery is a twisted flick.
Yes, it is.
So what's next on your what part of the list is this again?
We are on seasonal rewatches, so we're going to go into 1963 with Dementia 13.
Oh, going a little public domain.
Public domain, and that is exactly one of the reasons that I picked this one. Dementia 13 is a movie that you probably have seen scenes from, but you haven't realized it, because anytime somebody's watching a horror film in a movie that's not Night of the Living Dead, 90% of the time it's Dementia 13.
I think more often it's Carnival of Souls.
Carnival of Souls
but Dementia 13's in there too.
It's a great one.
It's the first film by Francis Ford Coppola.
Yes, it is.
And the guy went on to do The Godfather
and Bram Stoker's Dracula
and The Godfather 3.
Yes.
And but no, it's a phenomenal example of how a talented filmmaker doesn't necessarily need that much to make an interesting movie. Now, granted, when we say he didn't have a lot, he had like a castle in Ireland.
Yes, he did.
But the movie didn't have a ton of money to work with.
No, it didn't.
It was shot in black and white during a time when you could shoot movies in color.
Yeah.
And that was to save money.
Yep.
It was produced by the legendary Roger Corman, who at the time, Francis Ford Coppola was his assistant.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah. That's so awesome. Dementia 13 is a story about a family that is shocked by the death of her spouse. A scheming widow hatches a bold plan to get her hands on the inheritance, unaware that she is targeted by an axe-wielding murderer who lurks in the family's estate. What mystery shrouds the noble house? It's a great haunted house movie, even though there is no real haunts to it, but there's a lot of mystery in regards to who's doing the murders. You have a lot of story in regards to the death of the spouse. It's one of those movies also that recently became available in the way that Coppola wanted us to see it, because they chopped off the first 5 minutes of the
something like that,
the cheesy opening where they had
I have the release, I believe. The full director's cut.
Vestron recently put it out. It's readily available. You can find it pretty much anywhere because, like I said, it's public domain. But as of this recording, it's on Freevee, Crackle, Filmbox, MGM Plus.
It's public domain. It's everywhere. It'll be on next season of Popcorn Fodder. I'm not joking.
Hell yeah,
we're doing that. That's going to happen when that comes around.
So Dementia 13, 1963, definitely check it out. Another one that recently has gotten its notoriety because of a release, one of my personal favorites from the 80s, Alone in the Dark, 1982. This is a wild one.
That's the one with all the crazy people?
Yes, it is. So, 1982, a few dangerous and delusional mental patients break out of the mental asylum during a power blackout and lay siege to the new doctor's house, who they believe killed their previous doctor. And if you want more incentive on who the mental patients are, Jack Palance, let's see, Martin Landau,
Donald Pleasance,
the guy that played Dynamo in Running Man, Erland Van Lideth. It's one of those movies that, for the longest time, it was only available on an image DVD that came out in the early 2010s, I want to say, and then Shout just a couple years ago released it. This is one that is really unsettling. There are scenes that are super terrifying because once the lights go out, you basically have the asylum go completely loose and the lunatics are out in the city.
But it's kind of fun.
It's very fun.
I found it really fun.
Yeah.
Was that directed by
Jack Shoulder?
Jack Shoulder, the director of Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Yes, sir.
This was the film that got him the job on Nightmare on Elm Street 2. And Jack Shoulder, very underrated director. I think everything he's done has been good.
Yeah, no, it's one, and Alone in the Dark is a movie that definitely needs to be rediscovered because it was so unavailable for the longest time that it was one of those that when you went to a horror convention, they always had bootlegs of it because that was the only way to get it for a while. Yeah, no, that's a great one to watch, especially if you are a horror aficionado and you've never seen it or heard of it. Yeah, that's a deep cut to be recommended. Absolutely. So I would also double up on the Alone in the Dark. Although, again, not the Halloweeniest movie. No. I mean, none of these are Halloween literal movies, but they are movies that you are
attracted to in this time
Absolutely,
period for
yes.
whatever reason. Probably because you're stupid.
So, Alone in the Dark you can rent on Amazon, and it's also available on Vudu, or like I said earlier, if you want to get the Blu-ray from Shout, it is definitely worth it.
Did you hear that? Better check the locks on your doors. Weekly Spooky will be right back.
Let's go into the 90s with one of you and I's faves, Hens, Body Bags. John Carpenter's Body Bags from 1993.
Now we're cooking with gas.
Yes.
This is a phenomenal anthology. Am I correct? 2 parts directed by Carpenter and 1 part directed by Tobe Hooper.
That is correct.
So
yes.
John Carpenter, for those who may not be aware for whatever reason, directed Halloween and John Carpenter's Vampires. They Live.
The Thing. In the Mouth of Madness.
He's a phenomenal horror director. And this was originally a pilot
yes.
for a television series to be on Showtime.
Yes, it was.
A horror anthology series.
Yeah.
It didn't get picked up, so instead they did it as a feature film.
Feature film indeed.
With 3 episodes, 3 segments.
Yes.
2 directed by Carpenter and 1 directed by Tobe Hooper of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And they are fun.
They're super fun.
And sleazy, because we're talking early 90s cable.
Yeah.
So it's like everything is all about that. Like, can we add boobs?
Yeah, and you've got one story is about a serial killer at a gas station. You've got one that's about a hair transplant gone wrong, and the third one is Mark Hamill is a baseball player that gets a transfusion for the eye to get an eye replacement.
He gets a transplant of an eyeball from a serial
killer. Yes,
and they're all super fun.
Super fun.
And one of the things I really want to point out. There's a ton of awesome cameos of horror directors and stuff, but the best one is Wes Craven.
Wes Craven. Yes.
Wes Craven is in the segment about the woman who's working at a late night gas station, a late night fill up place.
Yeah.
And Wes Craven just plays a guy who looks a little creepy, but he's just drunk.
Yeah.
He's just drunk and he's been out late.
Luckies.
And he just wants to get a pack of cigarettes, and then he just thinks that she's a babe, so he's like hitting on her a little bit. And it's funny because he's a little creepy, but mostly he's just kind of odd. And then you realize he ain't who you need to be worried about.
No, he is not. It's got some amazing effects in it, especially the first episode with the gas station murders. There are some really, really sweet kills in that one. And Body Bags is available to watch right now on Freevee, Shudder, Amazon Plus, Shout Factory TV, Roku TV.
AMC Plus.
Yeah. Oh, what'd I say?
Amazon Plus.
My apologies. So 1993 Body Bags, John Carpenter's Body Bags, definitely check it out. Moving on back into the 80s, we're going to go with Mr. Tobe Hooper's 1981 underrated classic, The Funhouse.
Oh, okay. We watched that not too long ago.
Yes, we did.
I found it okay.
So 4 teenagers visit a local carnival for a night of innocent amusement, but soon discover that nothing there is innocent or amusing. Basically what happens is they decide to go to this carnival. They sneak into the funhouse after dark, not realizing that the owner of the funhouse's malformed son is in there, who ends up killing a prostitute in front of them, and then they are running from him.
Shit happens, you know?
It is. Yeah, it's definitely a shit happens
movie.
It's
a whoopsie.
It's got a lot of atmosphere to it. The opening mocks Halloween heavily, which is hilarious. You've got
that is true.
A little shit boy brother that's terrorizing his sister. You've got a guy in a Frankenstein mask that may or may not have something underneath the mask that's even more terrifying.
Yeah. There's a lot going. There's an insane amount going on in this movie to keep you interested.
It can be a little slow in the beginning, but once they get into the funhouse, it really takes off. And also, the reason I put this on the list is because this is one that MonsterFest AMC used to show all the goddamn time. So the Funhouse, 1981, Tobe Hooper, you can get it on AMC Plus. It is also available on Peacock as well, and it's definitely highly recommended.
All right.
1996, moving into The Frighteners, done by Peter Jackson.
Okay. Frighteners is a fun one.
I really like The Frighteners.
That's one you could almost watch with kids.
You could. There's some graphic violence to it and a little bit of sexual content, but nothing too major. Basically, the story of after a tragic car accident that kills his wife, a man discovers he can communicate with the dead. He uses that gift to con people. However, when a demonic spirit appears, he may be the only one who could stop it from killing the living and the dead.
Starring Michael J. Fox.
Michael J. Fox, directed by Peter Jackson, also features a great and psychotic performance from Dee Wallace and Jake Busey.
Oh, and Jeffrey Combs.
Oh, and Jeffrey Combs.
Jeffrey Combs is out of his mind in that film. I love it.
Our good buddy John Astin plays one of the spirits that Michael J. Fox communicates with.
Oh, he plays like a 49er.
The judge, yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's so good. That movie's a lot of fun. If you like quirky ghost characters, really there's no movie that tops it.
And I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts, Junk Food Cinema, this week, and they did an episode on it. I found out that it was originally intended to be a Tales from the Crypt pilot.
Really?
Yeah, and supposedly something fell through with it, so they just ended up giving the script to Jackson, and Jackson took it and delivered the Frighteners.
Well, I know that Bob Zemeckis was a part of it.
Yes, he was, yeah.
So,
and,
did they write it? Did Bob Gill and Bob Zemeckis, did the Bobs do it?
Fran Walsh and Peter Jackson are credited for it.
I was just curious, because they were the writing team behind Back to the Future, and for a little while they were the golden children of all of Hollywood.
Yeah.
Any script they wrote, especially Bordello of Blood, had to be valued highly just because they had, struck gold with Back to the Future.
So The Frighteners, 1996, a lot of fun, has some super scary moments as well. And like Hendrik said, depending on your kids, you could probably watch that with the family. It's a great one.
I mean, that one was on Sci-Fi Channel all the time.
Yeah.
When I was a kid.
It's keeping up into the 80s again. Let's go with 1980s Motel Hell.
Oh, all right.
Because another one that AMC Monster Fest played all the goddamn time.
I ever tell you the story of how I first watched Motel Hell?
You may have, but go ahead. I'm curious.
So when I was a kid, I was always told Motel Hell is like, that's what's up.
Yeah.
But I'd never seen it because it was never on TV when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So I'm in middle school, I think. Yeah, middle school. And I did a video project, which was not normal. I basically asked, hey, could I do a video instead of a regular thing? And the teacher said, sure. And I did this video and it did well. So then the teacher asked me if I would do a video to kids reading poetry. So I did. And my payment, quote unquote, was I got 2 Blockbuster gift cards.
Oh, yeah.
And I went out and rented Motel Hell.
Hell yes, you did.
And wow, me and my middle school buddy James, we were not really prepared.
I bet not.
Because Motel Hell is it's almost like it's trying to trick you.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because you don't really, it so gradually slips into total insanity that by the time there's a guy with a pig head on top of his head holding a chainsaw, you're actually not surprised.
No, you're not.
It really is like a gradual descent into being completely insane.
It really is.
And it's super good.
It really is. A seemingly friendly farmer and his sister kidnap unsuspecting travelers and bury them alive, using them to create the special meat that they are famous for.
It takes all kinds of critters to make Farmer Vincent's fritters.
And the couple is played, or the brother and sister are played by the great Rory Calhoun, who was in Angel. I'm blanking on the main thing that we've seen him in recently.
What was it? I'm sorry.
Rory Calhoun. He was in something recently that
I don't recall.
I can't remember. But then the other person is Nancy Parsons, who was famous for playing Bewley Ballbricker in the Porky series. So,
oh, yeah. She plays the sister.
Yeah.
And their relationship's confused.
Very confused, yes. Directed by Kevin Connor. This is one that if you haven't seen Motel Hell, it is the perfect time to watch it. And you can find it readily available right now on Freevee, as well as Pluto and Tubi, so make sure you check that out.
Yeah, Motel Hell, that is a blast. And that's another one that it is weird and perverted, but it was like PG, wasn't it? No, it was R. It was R.
Oh, yeah, it was R.
But it's like almost okay.
What always made me laugh was it wasn't available on DVD for the longest time until MGM put it out.
Yeah.
With frickin' Deranged.
Yes,
that was a double
feature
with Deranged.
That was the first time I owned Motel Hell.
That makes sense.
Because I rented it on VHS.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was... Yeah, good old Deranged.
That's a double feature and a half. So moving on, 1977.
Hold on.
I knew that.
I saw it ahead.
1977 are Dario Argento's what they call his masterpiece, and I would probably agree, Suspiria.
I'm not a huge fan.
I know you're not. And it largely due to the fact that you did like it for a long time, but when we watched it together,
it's not a bad movie by any stretch. It's a little boring, but my problem with Argento's movies is that he's not that big on storytelling.
No.
And I am big on storytelling.
You've turned me over to Fulci. I mean, Henrik can tell you, I used to be a huge Argento fan until we started watching the new Blu-ray releases that I would bring over, and slowly started realizing that the movies I thought I loved, I did not. Suspiria, though, is not one of those. I love this movie. It is a descent into colors and music and just madness. The story of an American newcomer to a prestigious German ballet academy comes to realize that the school is a front for something sinister amid a series of grisly murders. The opening of Suspiria, if the opening doesn't grab you, then you're probably watching the wrong movie.
Then you're probably already dead.
It also has one of my all-time favorite taglines, which is, the only thing more terrifying than the last 12 minutes of Suspiria are the first 92, even though the whole film is 92 minutes long.
Well, I don't know if Italians are known for their math skills, I guess.
But Suspiria has an amazing score by Goblin. It's got a lot of nightmarish imagery, some really brutal kills, and above all else, it's just one of those movies that, to me, feels very Halloween-y because of just how
the colors,
how strange in the colors are.
Yeah, the color. No, because colorfulness is a Halloween thing, without a doubt. Yeah, no, I get it.
So Suspiria, readily available right now on Tubi. You can also get it from Synapse. They have done a 4K restoration.
Or you could be like me and you bought the $45 edition to realize you don't like it that much.
Steelbook.
Yeah, that's what I did.
So moving on to another one of my favorites as we end out the second to last of the seasonal rewatches, we are going with a big personal favorite, 1953 Vincent Price classic, The House of Wax.
Oh, the original. So not the one where it turns out the house is made of wax.
Entirely of wax.
Well, we watched that in 3D together
yes,
in my backyard.
In your backyard.
While we ate a campfire roasted apples.
That was the best.
Yeah, they were good. I put. See, I'll tell you a secret out there, everybody. See, instead of just filling the apple with sugar, you fill it with candy corn.
Candy corn.
Because candy corn melts and becomes delicious goo. And if you don't like candy corn, I'm not sure why you're at the Weekly Spooky. I feel like you might not fit in here, and I'm worried for you. But no, House of Wax is a lot of fun.
It really is.
It's a big theatrical experience because it's got all of these actors, in particular Vincent Price, being big and stage player-ish.
A very young Carolyn Jones.
And an obscenely young Charles
Bronson, yep. House of Wax is basically the story of Vincent Price plays this sculptor who is with his partner decides that the wax museum isn't working for him, so he wants to burn it down and collect the insurance money. He wrongfully tries to kill Price and thinks he does, burns down the museum. Some months later, a figure appears, kills the old owner, and then suddenly this new wax museum is opening up, and Vincent Price is suddenly alive. Then some murders start taking place, more wax museum shenanigans start occurring with new exhibits.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. I actually got to screen this for, I belong to a film society in my hometown, and I got to screen this for them last year around October, and everybody had a blast with it. Like, a lot of people there hadn't seen it, and they were honestly surprised for being 1953 how scary it is.
No, it's a scary
It's an intense one.
Yeah, no, House of Wax is an excellent choice.
And it was actually one of the biggest movies for Price that basically brought him into horror after that point, too.
I believe that. And it was a 3D film.
Yes, it was.
If you're a loser like me who has 3D.
Made by a director with one eye. Andre Tatoff had one eye famously.
That is hilarious.
So finishing out seasonal rewatches, we've already mentioned it, but it bears repeating again. Fright Night, 1985.
I was hoping Fright Night might pop up.
Oh, of course it will. 1985, Todd Holland, classic.
Hold for applause.
Yes.
Okay,
The story of a teenager who loves his horror movies, but then comes to find himself in one when he realizes that a vampire is living right next door to him.
And this is a film by Tom Holland, as you know.
Yes.
He plays Spider-Man, and no, Tom Holland, you may know him more so as the man behind Child's Play.
Yes.
But this was one of his big first films.
Yeah.
In that he wrote it and directed it. It had a very good budget, and it's a total classic.
It absolutely is. And you've got a great cast of Chris Sarandon. You've got Roddy McDowall, who plays the Peter Vincent, the TV horror host.
Amanda Beers, from later known by many people as Marcy Darcy on Married with Children.
William Ragsdale, Stephen Jeffries. I mean, the names in this movie are enough, but then you've got a great soundtrack. You've got a really, really good story that freaking moves. That's one thing I always forget about Fright Night is how quickly the pace of that movie is.
The script is tighter than a nun's ass.
Yes, it is. And it's one of those absolutely fantastic vampire films, like top 10 for me. If you're talking about vampire movies, this is absolutely up there. And if you haven't seen Fright Night, shame on you. Shut this off right now and watch it.
Fright Night is one of the quintessential spooky movies.
Yeah, it is.
It's spooky. I mean, it's a movie that makes you think about, like, it makes you remember staying up late at night watching scary movies by watching a character stay up late at night watching scary movies. Because one of the things that's amazing about that movie is the vampire killer hunter that he obtains the services of is literally his local horror movie host.
Yes, it is.
That alone, I mean, being a kid who grew up literally obsessed with his local horror movie host and then befriending his favorite local movie horror host.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How did you not hunt vampires?
Well, I mean, my character did hunt vampires.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. You did.
Yeah, that was my horror host, Dr. Freak. He was a vampire hunter.
This is true.
Yeah.
So closing out the seasonal rewatches list, Fright Night 1985. You can find it on AMC Plus. It's readily available from Sony on Blu-ray. Umbrella did I think Umbrella did a really good release of it.
Yes.
And if you're a Fright Night fan and you haven't seen You're So Cool, Brewster, the story of Fright Night, phenomenal documentary on the entire making of not just one but also part 2.
Yeah, and Fright Night 2, it's not terrible. I mean, it's like it follows the tradition of a 5-star or 4.5, whatever, a perfect movie in many ways.
Yeah.
Being the sequel being 1 star less.
Yeah.
But that means it's still like a 3-star movie
Yeah.
or a 4-star movie, depending on how you look at it.
No, absolutely.
So I definitely, I love it.
All right, so closing out seasonal rewatches, we are now moving on to underrated Halloween films. These are horror films that take place around or on Halloween.
Oh, and this is my bread and butter.
And you're going to hate me for the first one, but I just have to get this out there. We don't have to talk about it long. 1986, underrated Spookies.
Does that take place on Halloween?
It takes place around Halloween.
It does not take place.
It's like September, I think.
I remember because when you first showed me the abomination that is Spookies... I remember when you first showed it to me. It was my favorite Halloween movie, and then
you and I watched it together for my first time. What are you talking about?
But it wasn't. No, but you said it was like a Halloween time movie, and it has no Halloween in it.
But it takes place in a haunted house and a graveyard, so we're gonna give it a pass. Spookies is not a good movie. Let's just get that out of the way first off. This movie is an absolute mess, but because of that being a mess, you have some amazing creature effects.
Yeah, the special effects are very impressive.
You have a crazy, Halloween-y atmosphere with a cemetery, a spooky house, a vampire lord guy that's trying to wife this young chick.
Trying to wife. I like that you just said wife. Trying to wife this chick.
But the synopsis, according to IMDb, is a wicked sorcerer tries to sacrifice a group of people inside his house with the intention of using their vitality to keep his wife alive. The big thing with Spookies that is the infamy with it is it's technically, is it 2 or 3 movies?
I believe it's 2.
Yeah, 2 movies cut into one because the original production of Spookies, if you watch the documentary on the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray, was extremely troubled. And when the producers got it back, they basically cut it to ribbons and completely made an entirely new movie. Yeah,
the movie was heavily changed and altered and adjusted. But more important than all of that is the fact that it was on The Last Drive of a Monster.
Yes, it was.
Joe Bob Briggs. And I thought it was going to play on. I tried to get it to play on here, but it doesn't want to.
Well, that's stupid.
Well, you're stupid.
You're stupid.
I'm trying to get it to play for us real quick.
But Spookies, not a good movie, but what I love about it, as I've already said, is it's got a perfect Halloween atmosphere to it, and it's one of those movies where if you just need something to unwind towards the end of September or to kick off October, maybe have a beer or a smoke, Spookies is that perfect drinking movie for the Halloween time because it has a little bit of everything from the monsters to the slapstick to a lot of shit that you can't even make sense of.
It is completely out of its mind. And that's why I was trying to get this up because the theme song is literally, hey, we're watching Spookies. It's a very confusing movie because it really
truly is.
It desperately is.
I don't think I understand the plot of Spookies.
It's Joe Bob Briggs.
We need one of those custom rap songs like at the end of Maniac Cop 2 last week. But I don't know where we... John!
Yo!
Yeah, the Spookies rap.
We got a guy named Duke and a puppet named Mook. Happy birthday, Billy. Here's a bunch of balloons. Gonna be buried alive very soon by a cat boy.
This movie makes nearly no sense. There are some fun things to like the farting zombies. We're not joking.
Oh, God.
The zombies fart.
Yes, they do. But
it feels like a kid's movie made by a sex offender. They just don't know how.
There's the quote for the back.
They just don't know. They're like, isn't this fine for kids? And you're like, no, it's not. Here we go. It's a very confusing movie. Hey, we'll watch Spookies. It's a very confusing movie.
So yes, that is Spookies from 1986, available right now on Shudder, AMC Plus, Fandor, and Screambox. Definitely check it out if you haven't. It's definitely worth at least a watch.
I'll say, it's worth a stream for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like it spooky. Weekly Spooky will be right back.
So moving into 2019, we have one that Henrik and I discovered just on a whim. It's been probably about 4 years ago. Trick from 2019.
Oh, yeah, that was on Prime, and I
Yeah.
just threw it on.
Yeah, from the director of the My Bloody Valentine remake, who was Patrick Alessier. This movie is a no-nonsense detective tries to track down a mass murderer named Trick who is terrorizing a small town. That plot, though, doesn't even describe the madness in this movie.
And we're talking Halloween AF.
Yes.
I mean, costumes, garish lighting, slasher tropes out the wazoo.
Yeah.
Really a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. The opening is literally at a Halloween party where one of the massacres starts taking place. You get to see Tom Atkins in it, who's hosting a screening of Night of the Living Dead at one point, which also turns into a bloodbath. It is a wild, wild movie that really, really deserves more eyes. And it's only an hour and 40 minutes, so it's just under the 2 hour mark, and it has Halloween out the ass. Definitely recommended. You can find it readily available right now on the Roku channel as well as Tubi. Definitely check out Trick. It's one that definitely needs to have more eyes.
That's one that's worth watching, and if Dave would just calm down for a second, definitely check out Trick. It's worth watching.
Yeah.
You'll have a great time with it.
Absolutely. So 2002's May is next on the list. Henrik and I are kind of split on this one, I think.
It does have a scene in Halloween, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it did the final 20 minutes.
Okay,
is
good.
Halloween.
Well, you see, David, I haven't watched May, 2002's May, since it came out on cable.
Oh, God.
It was on Showtime all the time.
Yeah.
And I would go to conventions and Angela Bettis was there because it was a hit.
Yeah.
I do not hate May.
Mm-hmm.
I think that May is a bit
Hyped.
I would say overrated.
Okay.
Because, as I used to joke, May's a really cool movie, but what's left if you take out every time the camera pulls away and piano music plays?
There is that.
It was the melodrama was the only thing I didn't love about the movie. I loved the characters.
Yeah.
I loved the reveal at the end. I loved all of that.
Yeah.
But there were some moments where I was I felt like they were hanging out at a Hot Topic asking people with the largest spike bracelets what they thought should be in a film.
So directed by Lucky McKee, May is the story of a socially awkward woman who is an assistant with a lazy eye. She has an obsession with perfection and descends into depravity after developing a crush on a boy with perfect hands. Basically, you have a Frankenstein story here where
basically,
yeah, basically,
yeah,
you have a
she
Frankenstein
decides
story.
to build a perfect
Build the
guy for
ultimate
her,
friend, yeah.
perfect friend or lover, or whatever you want to call it.
And there is one scene that this is a spoiler, but this is one scene to sell the movie to you. May works at a school for the blind, and she has this doll in glass that is May that kind of talks to her. And at one point, she brings the doll to the school, and the kids are wanting to look at it and touch it. Well, not look at it because they're blind. Apologies.
Well played.
They want to touch it, so she tells them that she can't take them out. Well, the kids swarm her, and the doll hits the ground and shatters in this box, and all the kids suddenly go, "She's out! Let's find her!" And they drop onto their hands
because
and knees
they've never heard the sound of shattering glass. Apparently.
Yeah, so they all apparently just dive into
these
this
kids
glass.
just drop to the ground and start feeling around into broken glass, screaming and crying, blood everywhere.
It is terrifying and unsettling.
And I'll say, I think that if May didn't have Angela Bettis, then it wouldn't be great.
It would be forgotten, I think. I mean, even though you've got a pretty great cast like Jeremy Sisto.
No, they're all great, but I mean, Angela Bettis it's a genius portrayal.
Absolutely.
I can't imagine anybody else being May.
Absolutely.
So I wish she was in even more.
12-Hour Shift was so good.
12-Hour Shift was amazing. And I liked her in the Toolbox Murders remake, which is not really a remake. They really just took the title.
Yeah.
But in that, she plays like a really normal person. And it was very jarring after May.
It really was. So May is available right now on Pluto TV, the Roku channel, and Tubi. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. It's a fun one and a lot of dark shit in it as well.
Oh, God, yeah.
So moving on to 1999, we have another one of my favorites, Idle Hands, which is a horror comedy that stars Devon Sawa, Seth Green. I mean, hell, it's got a bunch of people in it. But basically,
movies tend to have people in them.
Yeah, crazy, huh? Yeah. A teenage slacker's right hand becomes possessed with a murderous intent. Devon Sawa plays a teen who is just the typical high school stoner who's living at home. And what happens one day is his parents go missing. Some other murders start happening around the town, and he thinks that his hand might be the culprit on it because his hand now has a pentagram on it and it has a mind of its own.
Yes. I've always liked Idle Hands. Dance. Now, is it on Halloween?
Yeah, the Halloween Dance.
Yeah, no, it totally is.
Yeah,
that's one
featuring The Offspring.
That's one that wow, it's like they were like, listen, we really need to be dated. Is there anything else we can do? Let's get The Offspring. But no, it's a really fun movie. Seth Green is kind of at his top of his game.
Oh yeah,
Devon Sawa is at the top of his game. And
you got a young Jessica Alba in it before she was really big.
Really young.
Yeah, Vivica A. Fox.
It was all over cable,
USA,
pay cable. Well, it was on. Well, when I was a kid, it was on pay cable.
Yeah,
and you could watch it again and again and again. And I used to get it confused with another movie that now I'm not remembering.
Oh well, maybe it's on the list. We'll find out.
When I was younger, there was like another movie that I kept thinking was also Idle Hands.
Yeah, that does sound familiar, and now I don't know what it is.
Great job, David. Great
job. Idle Hands, 1999, currently available on Pluto and Tubi. It's a lot of fun. A great teen scream that is like that peak end of the 90s and really has a lot of great music, great laughs, and some pretty solid kills as well.
There's a thunderstorm rolling in as we're recording.
Oh, snap.
I just heard it.
Moving on to 2015, one that I got to show Henrik that was actually shot in our home state, The Funhouse Massacre.
Really?
I really like the Funhouse Massacre. So Matt and I watched it in a watch party, I think either last year or the year before that, and he freaking loved it. And I kind of rediscovered that it's a great watch party movie, but B, it's just a lot of fun.
I mean, I thought it was fine. I didn't love it. I'm just being honest. I didn't love it.
Basically, the Funhouse Massacre is 6 of the world's scariest psychopaths escape from a local asylum and proceed to unleash terror on unsuspecting crowd on Halloween. Funhouse themed mazes are inspired by their various reigns of terror. So the maze that the attraction they're in are all inspired by the killers that have now infiltrated it.
Yeah, and it was actually shot at which one was it? Land of Illusion, which is a massive haunt out this way. Is it still? Are they still kicking?
Yeah, they're still kicking.
I thought they were. Oh, yeah. Which is a cool element. Whenever people ask me about, whenever people around Dayton, Ohio are like, oh man, you're a filmmaker. Do you know the people who made that? I always have to explain to them, none of those people were local.
Yeah, none of them were local.
That production was brought in.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
It's just, but like, so no, I mean, like very few local people other than like background characters and crew, but none of the heavy creative leads. Were from Dayton area, but I thought it was fine.
Yeah,
I thought they wasted Robert Englund in it.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought he was
spoilers. He gets off in the first scene he's in.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. He's expensive,
but you have Clint Howard. You've got the one guy from Justified. I can't think of his name right now.
Good job.
And Courtney Gaines is in it too. But no, it's a fun one, and it's readily available right now on Freevee as well as Peacock. And you can find it on Shout Factory TV as well. So definitely check out Funhouse Massacre if you just want a fun Halloween romp.
Yeah, I think it'll be a fun one. I don't really feel the need to rewatch it, but I think that if I hadn't seen it, I would love to watch it around Halloween.
That's fair. Moving on to 2002, one that my good buddy next to me showed me, American Nightmare.
Here it goes.
Would you like to take this one?
No. No, American Nightmare is a special flick to me. So it was made in 2001, 2002, stars Debbie Rochon, directed by John Keyes. I'm not reading. I know this stuff.
No,
I'm just saying, like, I know this stuff.
I know, that's why I
It
threw
was
it to
made
you.
in Texas and shot on Super 16 millimeter film, which was a big deal because it was a very low budget film. It was released by Monarch Pictures, which I do business with them now.
Yeah.
But back then they were a big DVD player. And I was a huge Debbie Rochon fan when I was a kid. She was my first, Brinke Stevens and Debbie Rochon were my first horror movie crushes. And I had heard that this was her best performance, so I bought the DVD at Best Buy, and it is one of her best performances ever. It's about a group of friends on Halloween night. This is a Halloween movie.
Yes.
On Halloween night, a group of friends get together, and they're hanging out at a coffee shop while they're listening to their favorite pirate radio show called American Nightmare, hosted by Caligari, who his name's escaping me right now, but he's a legitimate Austin, Texas radio performer. And he's got this great all smiles kind of way about him, which honestly probably affected a lot of my desire to podcast.
Yeah.
Because I thought Caligari was just the coolest.
You've embodied Caligari on a couple weekly
I've had
episodes.
my moments, you know. Well, I know that one thing I do that Caligari, that radio disc jockey does is he goes, well,
yeah,
and then starts another thing. I do that. I know I do that.
Chris Ryan's his name, by the way.
Chris Ryan, yeah. He's amazing. So the cast is a lot of people who went on to do other indie things, nothing huge, but Debbie Rochon gets to play a vicious killer.
Yeah. Where
she was mostly known for playing like, you know, hot chicks and topless bimbo victim characters. And that's in her own words. No hate. But in this film, she plays Jane Topin, a murderous nurse with very, very, very minimal backstory as to why she's killing this group of friends. But what she's doing is she's planned out based on their fears how she's going to kill them, but in a realistic, not in the level of intricacy of, say, Saw.
Yeah.
But more, if somebody's afraid of being buried alive, she's going to make that happen. If somebody's afraid of mysticism, she'll poison them with LSD. If somebody's afraid of getting killed in the shower, she'll break into your house when you're home to wash your makeup off.
Yep.
It's a great film. If you love, honestly, this is going to sound weird, but if you love Weekly Spooky and what we do here, American Nightmare is a really good example of, if I were doing what I do now with Weekly Spooky in the 90s, it would be American Nightmare with Caligari. It would be that, because that's what you would do. So the common thread, Caligari is never directly involved in any of the mayhem, although the killer calls in at one point and talks to him. He's just kind of there.
Yeah.
Saying quips and taking calls and playing fun, spooky music. And I just love the vibe of, like, they're all 20-somethings hanging out on Halloween, trying to debate, like, do I even want to put on a costume and go to a party, or do I just want to hang out? And it's so believable, too, because there's, like, the one where it's like, I think I'm just going to hang out here and look at my computer. And it's like, you mean because our friend who you've had a crush on for forever is going to just hang out here, too? And he's like, maybe. It's like, it's so good. It's so good. American Nightmare, not readily available anywhere. But that is going to change very soon. And a Blu-ray is coming out in October. So check it. Keep your eyes open for American Nightmare. I almost guarantee it'll wind up on Tubi and places like that very soon. But that is one that is hard to find. Now, finding a DVD copy is really
super
cheap.
Easy. Yeah.
So, but yeah, American Nightmare, I absolutely adore that movie.
Fantastic.
When I showed it to you, I couldn't believe you'd never seen it.
I couldn't believe I hadn't either. And also, I couldn't believe how much I loved it, because it was one of those movies where you're like, I can't believe you haven't seen it. And I was like, well, like, I've never even heard of it. So then you put it on and I was just sucked in immediately.
Yeah, no, it's a hell of a great film.
So that is American Nightmare from 2002. 1990 is the next one with Flatliners, Joel Schumacher's Flatliners.
Oh, okay.
5 medical students experiment with near-death experiences.
And that is on Halloween.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Until the dark consequences of past tragedies begin to jeopardize their lives. Now, we are talking star-packed with this cast. We have Kiefer Sutherland, Kevin Bacon, Julia Roberts, William Baldwin, Oliver Platt, Kimberly Scott. I mean, the names go on and on with this, and this movie is not... I don't know if I've necessarily called this a horror film, but it is absolutely
it's a paranormal
terrifying.
thriller. Paranormal thriller. I think I'll call it a horror movie.
It's a great one because you have basically these students that are experimenting with death and doing so by basically going into a stasis.
Well, there's not stasis. They're dying.
Oh, they're dying.
So flatlining is the act of medically dying in a scenario where you can be resuscitated.
Yeah.
So they're dying while already hooked up to all of the stuff to get your heart to start again.
Yeah.
But at first, it's just they do it for a rush.
Yeah, and who can go under longer.
But as they do it longer and longer, it becomes obvious that there are weird side effects to dying and coming back.
Yes.
And the longer you go, the more you bring things back with you.
Absolutely. It's one of those
Very
movies
creepy.
that you really don't know where it's going to go, because even though you think that they're going to go deeper and deeper into it as they do, the things that come with them and the trauma that has to be faced is just, it is so good. I highly, highly recommend 1990s version over the remake. The remake's fine, but the 90s version is so much better.
Oh, yeah, the remake was okay.
It was
but the original 90s version is super good.
Yeah, you can find Flatliners currently on Pluto. It's also a very cheap Blu-ray you can get through, I think, Sony, and also Arrow just put out a 4K of it recently, too. So Flatliners, highly recommended. 2014 is our next year with The Houses October Built.
I still haven't seen it.
This is one that kind of snuck under my radar. I think I had rented it one night because I just saw the preview for it. This is basically the story of 5 friends that decide that they want to find what they call the extreme haunt. So they are huge lovers of going to haunt attractions and houses and everything, and they decide that they want to find an extreme haunt, like in the same style of the infamous McCamey Manor, where like they can touch you and they can do stuff to you.
Except
and everything.
none of that's real.
Yeah,
that's all pretend.
So they are stalked by a group of mysterious and disturbed individuals while on a road trip looking for the ultimate haunted house attraction. This is done again as a mockumentary, but it's also done as a film style of it. So you are following
it's a
this
found
camera.
Footage film.
Yeah, found footage. Thank you. I couldn't think of the word. And you go to all these different haunt attractions, and as the story progresses, they get closer and closer to what is called the Blue Skeleton, which is this infamous haunt attraction but they can't find any information on it except for they have to go to certain locations at certain times to get the clues to find the next location. Things start going crazy. They run into performers at these houses that don't take kindly to some of the things that they start doing, and the movie takes a very, very scary turn towards the last 30 minutes. That is just fantastic.
Well, one of the I want to watch it. I have not gotten around to it. I should watch it. It's definitely something I would like.
Well, and one of the things too is it originally was a documentary. It actually was a real documentary, which they included on the Blu-ray of the release from RLJ. And what they did with the documentary has a lot in coincidence with the feature film, except they definitely took a route with it at the end. But I recommend both movies, except do not watch Houses October Built 2. It ruins the first one, in my opinion.
Oh, we got Salty Dave over here.
I was so excited for that movie.
Well, the Houses that October Built makes me think of the fact that there's always been this urban legend that no matter how great a haunt is, there's this one that it's like it's in an abandoned hospital and every floor is scarier and scarier. And if you reach the top floor, they'll give you $1,000, but nobody's ever made it. And that stuff, like nowadays, you know, you kind of roll your eyes because you're like, oh boy, that thing again. But when you were a kid, didn't you believe there was that one haunt that's like,
oh yeah,
it's like, dude, bro, no, it's 6 acres of cornfields. None of those existed.
No.
But how cool would it be if they did?
Yeah, and Houses October Built is a great one because it takes place the entire Halloween season, of course, because they're going through the haunts, and then the ending actually happens on Halloween. One of the last things that I can absolutely say about it is when you get to the last 10 or 15 minutes of the movie, everybody has their own camera and you get to see what everybody is going through in the blue skeleton. And it is terrifying.
Okay.
So if you're looking for a good, scary one that also has some haunted houses in it, definitely check out the Houses October Built. It is available currently on Tubi, and you can also get a cheap Blu-ray from RLJ, I believe, right now.
Nice.
Moving into 2016.
Yeah, really,
The
come on.
Barn.
The Barn, I love The Barn.
The Barn is one of those movies that was crowdfunded in, was it around like 2014 or so?
I think so.
Yeah. It was crowdfunded. It's the story of a 1989 Halloween. Best friends Sam and Josh are trying to enjoy what's left of their Devil's Night before graduating high school, but trouble arises when two pals and a group of friends take a detour on their way to a rock concert, finding an old abandoned farm and awakening the evil inside. Now it's up to Sam and Josh to find a way to protect their friends, defeat the creatures that lurk within the barn.
It's a fun one. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of... I'm not a huge fan of the 80s throwback stuff because I just feel like it's an excuse to be lazy, but The Barn is not lazy.
No, it's not.
There's a lot of like major CGI effects and stuff, which a lot of people hate on because it does kind of take you out of that 80s vibe. But I thought the characters, the kills were really, really fun.
Yeah.
And Justin Seaman, I've known him for years and years. He's always been a super nice person to me. In fact, the first time I saw The Barn was at a double feature screening with Babysitter Massacre, my movie.
I forgot about that.
A Halloween screening because both of those movies take place on Halloween. So I love The Barn, and I think that if you get a chance, you should definitely check out The Barn.
And it also features Linnea Quigley and Ari Lehman in it as well. Linnea Quigley, of course, famous horror icon. Ari Lehman was the first Jason. And The Barn is available right now on Tubi, has a fantastic soundtrack, some really good gore effects as well, and generally, just like Henrik said, a very fun movie. Like, you just get kind of into a fighting the monster spirit kind of thing, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a blast.
So moving on to 2016, don't hate me, Terrifier. I put Terrifier...
You have made me think I had to hit the boo button.
Oh, yeah. I put Terrifier on here because I personally... I was a fan of All Hallows Eve, which was the first movie.
That's what I would have put on the list before
I was
that.
Thinking about doing All Hallows Eve, but I kind of thought Terrifier was the one because I like All Hallows Eve a lot, but Terrifier has kind of become the thing, and it's kind of hard not to watch this on Halloween for me. I'm not a big fan of Terrifier 2. I will say that right here on the air. Henrik and I saw it in theaters. I enjoyed it, but I don't see any reason why that movie had to be nearly 2.5 hours long. Terrifier, though, was the big reinvention of Art the Clown, who starred in All Hallows Eve in 2013.
I love All Hallows Eve, yeah.
Yeah, and I had it on here, but I decided to go with Terrifier just because of the popularity with Art. Art the Clown is a character that is just the most brutal, silent, malevolent, and vicious killer that I can think of in like the last 5 years, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would agree. I mean, mean-spirited doesn't even begin with Art the Clown.
No, especially. And on Halloween night, Tara Hayes finds herself as obsession of a sadistic murder known as Art the Clown. Basically, the story is she gets stalked by him, goes into the warehouse where he's at, and spoilers, she ends up dying the first 20 minutes in, so you think your main character is this chick, but then it turns out that her sister comes into the warehouse, and then that's when the insanity kicks up. Terrifier has one of the most infamous murder scenes where a woman is literally sawed in half, and you get to see all of it. Running at 85 minutes, it's not a bad flick. It takes entirely all place on Halloween, but if you are not a gore fan, if you are not a fan of just mean-spiritedness, this one you might want to skip.
Yeah, no, I could see that.
So Terrifier 2016 available right now on Freevee. You can also find it on Peacock and Plex as well as Prime apparently too.
Yeah, it's pretty much everywhere you want to be. It's like Visa.
Yeah.
The only thing scarier than that is not being subscribed. Weekly Spooky will be right back.
So moving on to one of our other favorites, Henrik, we're going to go with 2004, Satan's Little Helper.
I was worried that you were going to forget
How
Satan's
could I
Little
forget
Helper.
Satan's Little
I
Helper?
don't know. You always manage to disappoint me a new way.
So Satan's Little Helper, directed by the wonderful Jeff Lieberman, who I actually just met at Wasteland last year. This is the story of a little boy who is with his mom and his sister on Halloween. He wants to go trick-or-treating, and he's waiting for his father, and he's playing this video game called Satan's Little Helper, which he is dressed as the Satan character in the game. Or no, he's dressed as the helper in the game.
Yes.
And he comes across a guy who is dressed exactly as Satan in the game, and he thinks that they're playing a game on Halloween and starts going around with the guy dressed in the Satan outfit and actually helping him murder people.
It's a twisted flick, and I very much love this movie. It's got an odd sense to it. It takes place on an island community, like East Coast island community, so not like, Hawaii or something. And in this little island community, some psychopathic killer is about to go nuts.
Yeah.
And this little kid befriends him unintentionally, thinking it's all pretend.
Yeah.
And from there, there's a lot of really fascinating stuff. I can't recommend Satan's Little Helper enough. I'm so glad it has a Blu-ray.
Yeah, from Synapse. Yep.
Jeff Lieberman, famous for the movie Squirm, the killer worm movie, which I've always loved.
Great one.
He's a damn good storyteller. And they tell great stories in this.
Satan's Little Helper has a lot of dark humor. It's got a lot of
dark humor.
An immense amount of dark humor, and also goes places that you do not expect it to and never could have predicted to.
No. If you want to guess how Satan's Little Helper will end, then you are guaranteeing yourself confusion and disappointment.
And we get to go through Halloween night. We see trick-or-treaters. We get to go to a Halloween party.
Oh, it's all Halloween. All Halloween all day long.
Satan's Little Helper available on Screenbox right now. Also can be found, as Henrik said, on a beautiful Blu-ray that Synapse just put out. Cannot recommend it enough. You can also rent it on Vudu.
That was another one that was kind of hard to get for a while.
It really was. Yeah, you can only get that DVD. And then there was that infamous
bootleg Blu-ray that was like in Walmart.
Ended up in Walmart. That was the TV cut.
Yeah.
We're nerds. All right, moving on to 2019, we have Haunt, another one that Henrik and I really did not expect to like as much as we did.
Yeah, that was that on Shudder that we watched that for the first time?
No, we rented that on, I think we rented it on Vudu.
We might have rented it around, was that around the same time as Trick? I think we rented them around the same time,
Might have been a year later or so, but yeah, it might be close to it. Haunt is going back to that whole idea of extreme haunts. These are a group of friends that decide to go for an extreme haunted house that promises to feed on their darkest fears. The night turns deadly as they come to horrifying realization that nightmares are real. This one is an intense ride that really goes, again, places you don't expect it to, because once you get into the haunt, you think you kind of have it figured out. You don't know shit.
Yeah, it's a complicated storyline. And what these people are doing, why they're doing it, woof.
Yeah.
And you don't figure out all of it.
They are.
Yeah, no, I mean, every answer is not going to make you feel better.
No, it's
You're going
not.
to feel worse.
Directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods, who also wrote it. This is one that kind of snuck out around 2019, and then Joe Bob.
And they're the team behind Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic the Hedgehog, yeah.
They're the writing team behind Sonic the Hedgehog, yeah.
And Joe Bob showed it on the Halloween Hootenanny some years ago, and it's just an absolute blast. It takes place entirely on Halloween, except for, I think the ending is a little bit of a jump, but you will have a great time with this. It is packed with a lot of thrills, a lot of chills, and a lot of scares.
And satisfying.
Satisfying as fuck.
Yeah, it does not pull punches. It does not leave you wanting... Well, it leaves you wanting more, but not in the annoying way.
No, and if you do want more, there's supposedly a sequel on its way.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it's on Hulu and Prime?
Hulu and Prime is where you can find it.
Nice.
All right, moving into 2000, one that I have really, really come back to love in the last couple of years, Ginger Snaps.
Oh, well, that's a classic. Ginger Snaps is flawless.
It really is. 2000, starring Emily Perkins and Catherine Isabella. This is the story of two sisters that are death-obsessed. They're outcasts in their suburban neighborhood, and they must deal with the tragic consequences when one of them is bitten by a deadly werewolf.
This movie, another one I watched on Showtime when I was a kid when it first came out.
Yeah.
It's a Canadian movie about werewolves, and it's about these two sisters, and the relationship between the sisters is incredibly complex and good.
Yes.
Because I think that it's very obvious that the lycanthropy is a metaphor for menstruation and for becoming a woman, et cetera, because what does it do? It comes once a month.
Yep.
And it makes hair grow.
Yep.
And it makes you hungry for boys.
Yep.
Of course, hungry for boys, not necessarily in the way you would hope.
No, it is not.
And it just hits every element right. The casting is perfect. The directing is perfect. And I actually love Ginger Snaps 2.
Ginger Snaps,
even
2
more.
is good. It's a great one. And I personally appreciate Ginger Snaps back.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah. I'd have to rewatch them back to back, but I think I might like 2 more than 1, which is such a huge feat that's probably why I'm so harsh on Ginger Snaps back. Because the third one isn't even really a sequel. It's the two sisters playing different characters in colonial French Canada.
Yeah.
I know. You're already not going to watch. Well, because it's a Canadian production, so it's not colonial America. It's colonial French Canada.
Yeah.
The only difference is that somehow, amazingly, they're meaner to the natives.
This is true. So Ginger Snaps is currently available on AMC Plus, Crackle, Freevee, Peacock, Plex. It's a little bit of everywhere right now, so make sure you check that one out.
Ginger Snaps is one, if you've never seen it, put it on for your Halloween viewing. You will enjoy the hell out of it.
One of our second to last in the underrated Halloween category, we have The Guest from 2014.
Oh, yeah, that does have that big Halloween scene.
Yes, it does.
That's a great one.
This is one that was, oh, God, what's the director? He did, what's the big thing he did? Oh, yeah, Adam Wingard. Duh.
Yeah, Wingard. He did Blair Witch. He did
VHS,
Godzilla vs. Kong.
Next.
Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yeah. I was thinking horror, but yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just was naming one of the most successful movies of all time.
I know. But The Guest is a soldier introduces himself to the Peterson family, claiming to be the friend of their son who died in action. After the young man is welcomed into the home, a series of accidental deaths seem to be connected to his presence. This is a horror film, but not in the way you expect it. Is the best way that I can put
I would agree. It's definitely a little bit more of a thriller style.
Actiony, yeah.
But it turns horror at the end.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of very cozy horror things like that very 80s score.
Yeah.
It's a very slow burn, but I found it very creepy. It's one I always be honest on here. It's one I keep saying I'm going to revisit and I don't get around to it.
Yeah, I know.
I feel bad.
And it's got Dan Stevens as the guest in it, and Dan Stevens plays psychotic so well in this movie that you really are afraid of him by the second act.
Yeah, no, he's terrifying.
Terrifying. So The Guest is available right now to get on Prime. You could rent it on there, as also rentable on Vudu, or if you want to get the cheap Blu-ray, I think it's like $10 right now from, I think, Lionsgate? Either Lionsgate or...
Yeah, that I don't know.
I'm not 100% sure. All right, rounding out our underrated Halloween, we are going to go to 2015 with Tales of Halloween, another great anthology flick that this was one that kind of took me a second watch to really appreciate it.
I thought it was fine, and then 3 or 4 years later I watched it and loved it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's an anthology. It's got a bunch of different directors working on it.
Yeah.
Some of them with names you might recognize, like Mike Mendez, I believe, did one, and we were just talking about his film earlier. Yep. It's so much fun. It's about this little town on Halloween night and all these stories that vaguely interconnect.
Yeah. It's
got a low budget, but that means that they do wildly ridiculous things, like having John Landis play a father of a child.
Landis, Barry Bostwick, Adam Green. I can't think of the dude's name from Compliance.
Oh, I was going to say Dana Gold's in it, too.
Dana Gold's in it. I mean, everybody's in it. Freaking, this is one that's a lot of fun. You've got 10 different stories that are all vastly different, but interconnected in this small town. You've got comedy ones. You've got really terrifying ones, really dark ones. It's a perfect one. Henrik screened it a couple years ago in the backyard, and this is one that if you want to get your friends together for a great time, Tales of Halloween, highly recommended.
We loved it, even though we were shivering under our blankets.
Yes, we were.
Because we were like, okay, no more movies after this. It's too cold.
So you got a little bit of everything: aliens, axe murders, ghouls. You've got one of my personal favorites, which are two guys battling over whose haunted house is better.
Oh, that one's amazing. That's wasn't that one of the ones with Dana Gould? That's Dana Gould and
James
Duvall.
Yeah,
James Duvall.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. So fun.
So Tales of Halloween 2015, available right now on Freevee. You can also find it on Plex, Prime Video, Roku, and Tubi. So if you need to get some Halloween into your evening, this is the one to choose.
Tales of Halloween is a good I just finished handing out candy movie, or a I'm getting ready to hand out candy movie.
All right, so that finishes out our underrated Halloween. We are into the final stretch. These are the Halloween musts, in my opinion. This is the you've passed out candy, you're sitting on the couch.
There's a whole other line.
This is the last one.
But the last category.
Yeah, but these are not all Halloween based. These are just Halloween musts for me.
Okay, let's go.
We're gonna get the big one out of the way first. Halloween 1978 through 2022. The Halloween series. Yes,
I mean they're drenched in Halloween series. You can't go wrong with that. There's nothing more I can say about them. They're all going to be available on Peacock, I think, soon too, as well. Yeah, they're around. If you don't know how to find a Halloween movie, then what's wrong with you?
I would go on more about them, but what hasn't been said about them? If you want to go with two of the best, in my opinion, besides Halloween 2, which is my all-time favorite, I think Halloween 3 and 4 are unbeatable. Okay, for Halloween night. Fair. All right, moving on. We're going to go into 2003 with House of a Thousand Corpses. I know Rob Zombie film. Yep. Yes, I know you are a little not lukewarm on this. I'm not a huge fan. House of a Thousand Corpses is Rob's first film ever. It was done in 2003, originally done under Universal, but some shit happened and it ended up going with Lionsgate. I first saw this movie when I was in my teens, and I absolutely fell for it. I prefer Devil's Rejects over House, but House takes place on Halloween. The opening takes place on Halloween. Yep. You've got a completely macabre setting with a psycho family that just loves to murder. I first saw it in my teens, too, after waiting 4 years for it, and I didn't like it. So, Captain Spaulding, Otis Driftwood, I mean, you've got a whole cast of characters, you've got a whole bunch of carnage, and overall just a pretty fun movie that's right under the 90-minute mark at an hour and 29 minutes, plus a very young Rainn Wilson in it as well. Yeah, he's a baby. So House of a Thousand Corpses, if you haven't seen it, definitely check that out. It's a great one for Halloween night. Moving into 1988, let's go with an absolute classic, Pumpkinhead. Oh, Pumpkinhead. It has pumpkin in the title, so how can we not, obviously? I love Pumpkinhead. I mean, incredible monster. Stan Winston directs and creates the monster. Lance Henriksen brings all of the humanity to the role you could ever hope for. Yeah. It's a simple film about country fried revenge. Yes. And the old proverb, he who seeks revenge should dig two graves. The best thing about the Pumpkinhead monster is that when you summon it, it is a part of you. I love that concept for the idea of revenge being awful. Yeah. So when Pumpkinhead kills your enemies, you see them die. Yes. And if they somehow were to kill Pumpkinhead, you would die. You're very unlikely. More likely, in every Pumpkinhead sequel, there's the realization, shit, I have to die myself if I want Pumpkinhead to stop. Because that's the big thing that the old hag says every movie is like, once this starts, it can't be stopped. It is a great one. And one thing I absolutely love about Pumpkinhead is the setting for it is complete isolation. Like, once those guys end up accidentally killing Lance Henriksen's son, there is no way. I mean, that happens in the first 10 minutes. But there is nowhere for them to go, and they all have to face Pumpkinhead. So it is one that you cannot miss out. If you haven't seen Pumpkinhead, make sure you check it out. It is currently available on Showtime. You can also find it on Prime and Vudu as well. And I think I love Part 2 as well. Part 2 is great. Once you get past Part 2, stop. Ouch. Harsh, Dave. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you like 3 and 4? I didn't say that. Yeah, that's what I thought. All right, moving into 1986, we also have Trick or Treat, the classic story of what happens when you love your idols too much and get the power to basically finish off your enemies because of it. Why don't you just say the Heavy Metal Halloween movie? Heavy Metal Halloween movie. He is correct. Starring Gene Simmons and Ozzy Osbourne. You also have a great performance by Mark Price along with Tony Fields, who plays Sammy Kerr, who is the rock demon in this. A bully teenage boy is devastated after the death of his heavy metal idol, Sammy Kerr. Halloween night approaches. He discovers that he may be the only one who can stop Sammy from making a satanic comeback from beyond the grave. This is also the classic story of why you don't play your records backwards.
Yeah, correct.
Trick or Treat is one of those movies that a lot of people know about, but in regards to availability, it's been tough to come by because the only way you can get it is a very shitty DVD that's been out for the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, it's always been really hard to come by.
And Synapse is currently working on a 4K of it. We cannot wait for it. If you're looking for some heavy metal horror, Trick or Treat 1986 is the way to go. Not available streaming anywhere at this point, but you can still get that DVD if you want to track down a copy of it. Going back into the old school, we're going to go to 1959 with House on Haunted Hill, the Vincent Price classic. This is a haunted house story. A millionaire offers $10,000 for 5 people who agree to be locked in a large, spooky rented house overnight with him and his wife. There are malicious intent between him and his wife that you find out in the opening, basically, that they hate each other and they're trying to possibly off each other.
Perhaps.
House on Haunted Hill is a great one done by the late, great William Castle. This is a movie that is another one of those, I think, is it public domain?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, because it's another one that they also find on TV and horror films a lot.
Yeah, if you're going to watch House on Haunted Hill, find the version Elvira hosts.
Yes.
That's the best way to watch House on Haunted Hill.
It's a great one. Vincent Price at the top of his game. You've got some great William Castle. The things that he is known for are all over this movie. And above all else, it's only 75 minutes. You're in and out. So if you get done passing candy, you want a short thrill, House on Haunted Hill, 1959, available on Freevee, Pluto, Tubi. It's a little bit everywhere because public domain.
That's a favorite one of mine to watch late at night.
That's
or
so
catch
good.
it on TV late at night.
So going into TV films, we are going to go with one that Henrik and I recently just revisited because of our good buddy Joe Bob, Dark Knight of the Scarecrow from 1981.
Yeah. Back when made-for-TV horror films were literal stuff of nightmares.
Yes.
When you had stuff like Trilogy of Terror and Dark Knight of the Scarecrow and Are You in the House Alone to just mortify you.
Absolutely.
It's all about revenge.
Oh, 100%.
There's this little southern town, and there's this guy everybody calls Bubba. He's mentally challenged grown man, played by Larry Drake.
Dr. Giggles.
Dr. Giggles and
Durant.
Robert G. Durant. And I there's nothing to not love about this movie.
Yeah.
Basically, they kill him.
Wrongfully.
Yeah, they assume that he hurt a little girl, so they kill him. And then they start dying.
Yes, they do.
But it's done in such a simplistic and haunting way that you don't know why they're dying.
Yeah.
You don't know if maybe it's their guilt because some of them die in farming accidents, which could have been caused just from not paying attention or being drunk or whatever. But the Scarecrow keeps popping up all over town.
Yes, he does.
And the little girl who loved Bubba doesn't believe Bubba's dead because she talks to him.
Yes, she does.
It's a chilling, creepy film.
It is one that if you have not seen, this is an absolute recommend from both of us for Halloween night or just October in general. Like Henrik said, this is the time when TV movies were terrifying, and Dark Knight of the Scarecrow is a great, great recommendation.
Yeah, no, such a great film.
Currently available on Shudder, AMC Plus, as well as Peacock, Screenbox, and Tubi has it. You can find it basically everywhere right now. And if you like it, make sure you get the Blu-ray. There are some great bonus features and a commentary on there as well.
Yeah, the bonus stuff's really good on that.
1988's Night of the Demons is next up.
I was wondering if that was going to make the list.
Of course it had to. So Night of the Demons, 1988, you have 10 teenagers party at an abandoned funeral parlor on Halloween night when an evil force awakens. Demonic spirits keep them from leaving and turning their gathering into a living hell.
It's a possession slasher film. Lots of characters, laugh out loud dialogue.
Yeah.
Everything you could want from an 80s, like kind of a silly 80s movie.
And one of the best movie openings of all time, especially for the Halloween time.
Oh, because of the animation and everything?
Yes,
yeah,
the
no,
animated
it's
opening.
easy to forget about that because that movie's so dense with stuff. It's easy to forget that there's this really great opening.
Yeah, it's a fantastic flick. A lot of gore, a lot of laughs, and a very, very shocking ending.
Depends on how you look at it, I suppose.
That's fair. So Night of the Demons, currently available on Freevee. You can also find it on AMC Plus right now and Shudder. Night of the Demons, absolute cannot recommend enough.
Yeah, no, it's an absolute favorite. And the sequels I love too, which are finally coming out on Blu-ray.
Yes, they are.
And I think they're 4K, actually.
4K for the first one,
on
Blu-ray for the 2 and 3.
Yeah, because 3 had never been on Blu-ray at all, ever. And,
Yeah.
and barely been on DVD in America.
Yeah. So moving on to 1999, we have Stir of Echoes. This is an absolute favorite of mine that I need to revisit Stir of Echoes. It is so fucking good.
I haven't seen this.
You've never seen Stir of Echoes? Okay, well, that's getting out of the list, too. So after being hypnotized by his sister-in-law, a man begins seeing haunted visions of a girl's ghost, and a mystery begins to unfold around him in the house that he's living in. The man, of course, played by Kevin Bacon.
That's what, when I was looking at the little thing on your screen,
yeah,
I was like, wait, because I remember some horror movies he was in,
yeah,
but the part with him being hypnotized and stuff just does not, it screams my mom rented it on tape.
I guarantee it. I would almost guarantee it.
But I don't recall sitting down and watching it.
This is a phenomenal ghost story. This kind of got shrouded by the release of Sixth Sense. That's why not a lot of, people know about Stir of Echoes, but it's not one that I hear enough about. Stir of Echoes is an absolutely terrific ghost story that drives on the madness of when you're trying to find something out. You're being haunted by these spirits. He's got a family around him, and just these secrets that get uncovered in this movie are so shattering that the film itself is just unstoppable. It's based on a novel by Richard Matheson as well. And Stir of Echoes is scary. It's got some laughs to it, but most of all, it's just has a very satisfying ending.
And hear me out, David. I'll buy us cheesesteaks if you come over and bring Stir of Echoes and The Cell.
Okay.
Two films that I've never seen all of.
Okay.
But I really want to.
Okay. I am down for that. Stir of Echoes is highly, highly recommended if you have not seen it. Perfect Halloween watch, perfect October watch. You can find it right now on Freevee, Plex, Pluto, the CW, Roku, Tubi. It's readily available, so make sure you check that one out. And honestly, it's not one that isn't too bad for the family. There's some coarse language, but overall, it's mainly just a really scary
And remember,
flick.
it's a stir of echoes, not a shaken or
Shaken and
blended
stirred of echoes.
of echoes.
So Stir of Echoes 1999, make sure you check that one out.
Are you afraid? Good. Weekly Spooky will be right back.
Going into 1973, we have the one, the only, the immortal classic, The Exorcist.
Oh, okay. It's a great film.
It's a great film, and also with our unfortunate passing recently of blanked on his name, William
Bill
Friedkin.
Friedkin,
Yeah, Billy Friedkin. The Exorcist is the quintessential Halloween movie. It's still scary to this day. When a young girl is possessed by a mysterious entity, her mother seeks help of the two priests to save her daughter. If you don't know about The Exorcist, I don't know how. The movie shook the world when it came out in 1973. It is terrifying. It's provoking. It's got a lot of imagery that you really just don't see today, to be honest.
Yeah, it was a trailblazer of its time. It's one of those movies, kind of like watching The Exorcist is kind of like watching Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
You watch it and you go, oh, I've seen this before. And then you look at the date and go, oh, this was the first time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, because I remember the first time I watched Apocalypse Now was probably like 2009 or 2010. Wow. And I remember watching going like, oh, I've seen this before. And then I was like, wait, when was this put? Oh, this is the first time I'm seeing like pop music put over war footage and stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, The Exorcist, there's what more do you want? It's a film so strong that it can make my atheist ass feel like a Catholic for 2 hours straight.
Absolutely.
It makes Catholicism very engrossing. The Vatican should have embraced The Exorcist.
Yeah.
Should have been like, the Pope should have just been like, did you watch that? Yeah. I better see you at Mass. Hope to see ya. Hope to see ya. You mother sex cocks in hell.
The Exorcist, as far as I can recommend for the version to watch, because there's several different versions of it. If you can find the unrated director's cut, that has the infamous shot of Linda Blair walking up the steps backward. That is pure nightmare fuel. Yeah. That just adds to the movie. So if you can find the unrated director's cut, that is one to watch. If you can't, just check it out. It's available right now on AMC Plus, HBO Max. It's also going back into theaters for October, one of those again, too. So keep an eye out for it if you want to see on the big screen. William Friedkin's masterpiece, The Exorcist, 1973. That is a perfect Halloween October movie. I cannot say anything more.
While not being on Halloween, but it's still good.
Yeah, it's still. So going into the hot topic moon, as Henrik calls it.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
1994's The Crow. A man brutally murdered comes back to life as an undead avenger of him and his wife and his fiance's murder. This movie is the quintessential revenge tale. You've got a guy that is killed by these robbers, and his wife also bears witness to it. They kill her as well. He gets resurrected a year later by a crow to basically set the wrong things right around Halloween time, specifically on Devil's Night. This is a movie that is an action movie. It's got horror elements to it. it always gets called a horror film or gets lopped into it, and I really don't see it as one. But the fact of the matter is you have an undead guy coming back to get vengeance. The Crow is a movie that is full of action, full of suspense, an amazing and final performance by the late, great Brandon Lee, who was Bruce Lee's son. This movie is very near and dear to my heart, and also features a great performance by Ernie Hudson, as well as Michael Wincott, who recently was in Nope, and honestly kind of stole the movie for me, too.
Yeah, I would agree. He stole Nope, and he just took Nope for about 4 minutes.
Yeah,
and was like, "All right, this is my movie for a minute."
But the Crow is a perfect Halloween flick. It's got Halloween atmosphere around it. There's pumpkins, there's fires, there's people in makeup, there's kids trick or treating at one point. It's one of those that's not necessarily, like I said, a horror film, but if you're looking for a good spooky-ish thriller, this is not a bad one to choose. So 1994 is The Crow.
I'll let you have it. I don't think it's a horror movie,
It's not.
But it has some Halloween good stuff to it.
Available currently on Showtime and Showtime Anytime. You can also get a very cheap Blu-ray available right now and rent it on pretty much any of your streaming services.
It might be on Paramount Plus, too, since they're merging Showtime with Paramount Plus right now. So.
Moving on to 1999, a big personal favorite of mine that I actually got to show Henrik for the first time a couple years ago, Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow with Johnny Depp.
I barely remember anything about it.
That's fair.
I feel bad. No, I was like, we did?
We totally did.
It's a fine movie.
I
There's
love
nothing
Sleepy
wrong
Hollow.
with it.
Sleepy Hollow has all the quintessential Halloween feels to it. It's right around Halloween time. You've got this the retelling of the Headless Horseman done in the way that only Tim Burton can do. So the beheadings are
with Helena Bonham Carter and Johnny Depp and minimal color.
Christina Ricci instead of Helena Bonham Carter, but okay.
Oh, okay. Well, excuse me, all the hell.
And Christopher Walken is the Headless Horseman.
He was?
Yeah. He is the Headless Horseman in the flashbacks, and then you see him at the end of the movie.
Oh, I do remember him being in the flashbacks.
Sleepy Hollow is full of thrills, full of gore, full of that Tim Burton-y stuff we love with the creepy Danny Elfman scores and very bleak imagery. It is a very creepy movie, but a very fun movie and a perfect retelling of the Headless Horseman Sleepy Hollow tale. I cannot love this movie enough, and I really, really recommend it for Halloween time. Plus, it's also got some great performances by Michael Goff, Jeffrey Jones, and Richard Griffiths. It's a great one. And if you haven't seen Sleepy Hollow, perfect one that you can put on as soon as you get done passing out candy, or if you just want to unwind after the Halloween.
It definitely has the feeling of like an old scary story.
Yeah.
But it's a movie. I do love it. I think it's just been overhyped so hard.
I get that.
That I sometimes go like, but I do love Sleepy Hollow.
Hollow's great.
And I love the story.
Yeah.
I just love the story, so.
Moving on to 1968, the one, the only, the quintessential classic, Night of the Living Dead.
Which is not at all the one or the only.
1968 it is.
Well, okay, fair. Yeah, I was gonna say, you mean the often copied and literally and figuratively Night of the Living Dead?
And public domain.
The so many sequels, Night of the Living Dead?
The featured in Halloween 2 on the TV, Night of the Living Dead.
It's always, if you're in a movie, that's how you know, David, if you ever worry that you're in a movie where you're about to die, that's if you just turn your TV on and Night of the Living Dead's on and you just go, that's what I'll watch tonight.
That's what I'll watch.
You're going to die. You're about to die.
That's exactly what you're going to watch.
But
I don't think we need to
film.
tell the story.
Super low budget movie made in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's such a great film. It's scary. The Criterion Blu-ray 4K that was put out looks amazing.
Incredible.
It's like watching the movie for the first time.
Yeah.
I love watching Night of the Living Dead late at night, especially around Halloween.
There's no bad time for Night of the Living Dead, but if you don't watch it around Halloween time, what are you even doing?
Well, you see, it became synonymous with Halloween because when it was believed to be in the public domain, television stations could play it whenever they wanted for free.
Yeah.
So you better believe Halloween night, they're like, show Night of the Living Dead again.
Hell yeah.
Like, why not? Like, it's free and people love it, you know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the secret of it. Like, I sometimes when I'm not feeling so good, because, there's been a lot of like challenges and stuff with the sick dog and everything. Sometimes if I need to feel cozy, I'll look up like my favorite like regional horror host, like The Ghoul is my favorite. I love The Ghoul. I love how, just how he's like, zingy, zingy. Hey there, folks. Like I love him, but the amount of times that he hosts Night of the Living Dead, that they have segments of it, because they're like, and tonight we're showing the immortal classic Night of the Living Dead, which we don't have to even pay 3 cents for, which is why they're showing it.
That makes sense.
Turn blue, stay sick, turn blue, scratch glass, climb walls, and most important of all, don't get caught.
Oh my God.
I love The Ghoul. I literally fell asleep listening to him last night.
That's awesome.
But no, there's like this constant thing with Night of the Living Dead. You know what, Dave? You should come over around Halloween. I have a VHS rip of Night of the Living Dead on Detroit television, hosted by, this is from the 90s, hosted by the Ghoul and Count Scary.
Oh, hell yeah.
Fighting each other.
Oh.
So it's the Ghoul versus Count Scary while they show, and it was played on Halloween night.
I'm in.
It is so much fun because Count Scary does like silly accents and has like voiceover guys, and then the Ghoul's just like, I'm stuck in a bathroom. Like, it's so good. And then Count Scary will be like, well, here's a funny joke I heard, and then the Ghoul's just like, I'm gonna blow this up with a firecracker. Like, it's so good.
Night of the Living Dead available everywhere. You can literally find it on every streaming service right now. It is one that you just have to throw on at the Halloween time, or any time for that matter, but Halloween especially. Moving on to 2007, we have one favorite of Hen and I's again, Murder Party.
I love Murder Party. Rachel and I are going to do a cutting deep into horror on Murder Party.
Hell yes. Murder Party, a random invitation to a Halloween party leads a man into the hands of a rogue collective intent on murdering him for the sake of their art, and that is basically the perfect synopsis for this movie. It is
not, I mean, it's a horror film, but it is a riotous comedy.
Oh, yeah.
It is unbelievably funny. It is nonstop. You never know what's going to happen next. The gore is insanely gruesome. The humor is insanely funny, and it launched a major Hollywood career.
Yes, it did.
Show me his name because I don't want to get
Blair?
it. No, well, Macon Blair, but I'm talking about the director.
Oh, Jeremy Saulnier.
Jeremy Saulnier, who did Blue Ruin. He did Green Room. Incredible director.
Yeah.
And this film, the reason I love it so much, and the reason it'll be on Cutting Deep into Horror, is the film skewers the Brooklyn and New York art scene.
Oh, yeah.
And in a way that they deserved. Because, well, when it came out, so it came out in 2007, I had been living on the East Coast a year and a half when it came out.
Oh, wow.
So when I watched it, I was like, yeah, those motherfuckers are out there, man. They're out there. And the movie just lampoons them.
Yeah.
It has a great time doing it. Murder Party is a must every Halloween season for me, no matter what.
100%.
Always watch it.
Available right now on Crackle, Monsters and Nightmares on the Prime Channel, Plex, Pluto, Tubi, a little bit of everywhere for that one. If you haven't seen Murder Party, this is the year to make sure you attend the party.
Yeah, you're invited to a murder.
Invited. Second to last on the list of Halloween must, we have the immortal and loved Trick or Treat from 2007.
Which isn't from 2000. Well, no, 2007. Yeah, well, it was made in like 2003. And then it was shelved for forever.
Yeah.
Trick or Treat, we call it that so you're not confused by the heavy metal one.
Correct.
Is just about as Halloween as you can get, because it's not just a movie on Halloween, it's about Halloween.
Yeah.
It's about it's the kind of the stuff I talk about on Weekly Spooky on Halloween Day. How I talk about, like, I love the concept of, like, let's sit and think for a minute about, like, you wear the costumes to blend in with the monsters, and you give out candy so they won't come after you later, and you keep the jack-o'-lantern lit because that's a way to keep the evil spirits away. All these things, Trick or Treat goes crazy with them. I mean, just the scene with the little autistic girl who carves a million really nice jack-o'-lanterns.
Yeah.
It's just, everything about it's great. They set it in Ohio, which I think was really smart, because if you want to do like this town loves Halloween more than any other town, I feel like Ohio is where you should put it. Michael Dougherty did an incredible job. Of course, then he also did Godzilla King of the Monsters, I believe.
And Krampus.
Krampus is so good too. That's just a great film. If you haven't seen Trick or Treat, you
owe it to yourself.
You need to. It's a phenomenal film. It's an anthology, except it's a tight anthology. They all tie in together at the end. So at first you feel like you're watching 4 individual stories, but by the end you realize you're really watching one big story.
Yeah, and the final story between Brian Cox and our main character Sam is chef's kiss. It is so good.
It's nailed perfectly.
So Trick or Treat is currently available to rent on Prime. You can also find it streaming on AMC Plus, and another one that will be going back into theaters this year as well too.
Good. So, I'd like to catch it if I could.
I would too. So last but not least, certainly not, we are going to go with a film that does not take place on Halloween, but is the embodiment of Halloween.
Is it because I'm the one who made you realize it was the best on Halloween?
That, and also showing it to Allie for the first time, and Allie just getting sucked into it to the point where she was like, "Can we watch more of Tales from the Crypt?" That was the again. We are talking about 1995 classic Tales from the Crypt presents Demon Knight by our good friends Gil Adler and Al Katz as well.
Yeah, who we chatted with on our Freddy's Nightmares podcast.
Yes.
And it's directed by Ernest Dickerson, who's done incredible work, more than you could really mention.
Yeah.
Juice, he did Surviving the Game, a ton of episodes.
Tales from the Hood?
Tales from the Hood, I believe, yeah. And tons of episodes of The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
He's a phenomenal director, and this was kind of one of the first films, I think, that showed that he could knock it out of the park with like a big action-y horror thing. It's about a group of misfits who are in this little boarding house, a flop house in the middle of nowhere, when a man shows up who is basically carrying an amulet that if evil gets a hold of it,
the world is doomed.
The world is completely doomed. And I love everything about it. The world building is so simple and so good. Like, just the fact that, like, when he's like, they're like, do you want to go back to this house or whatever? And he looks at his hand, and the tattoo on his hand moves. It lights up and moves to a different part of his palm. And then he goes, this is the place. You're like, wait, what does that mean? Why did his tattoo move? What did it tell him? It's nonstop fun. Billy Zane is an incredible bad guy.
The Collector.
Oh, he's so good. There's nothing not to like about it. And I'll never forget the night after my Halloween party. At midnight, I was like, we're watching Tales from the Crypt Demon Night. And everybody was like, okay. And then by the end, everybody was like, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
It is a phenomenal movie, absolute fun. It's plenty of gore, plenty of action, plenty of laughs, and above all else, an incredible performance by the entire cast. Like Henrik said, you've got Billy Zane, William Sadler, Jada Pinkett Smith, CCH Pounder, Dick Miller.
Keep her name out of your mouth.
Thomas Hayden Church, Charles Fleischer. I mean, the list goes on and on. If you have never seen Tales from the Crypt Demon Night, this is probably the most recommended of this entire list for your Halloween season. Tales from the Crypt Demon Night is an absolute blast of a time. You can watch it with friends. You can probably watch it with family if you want. What the hell?
Yeah, what the hell? I mean, if you got some families will like it, like the Manson family.
Yeah, exactly. But 1995, Tales from the Crypt Demon Night, that is currently available on Peacock. You can also get an incredible Blu-ray from Shout Factory, rentable on any of your streaming services, and that is by far one of the biggest picks off this list that I think is absolutely appropriate to close with. Yeah,
I would have to agree. Great choices. You left out the best Halloween movie of all time, Babysitter Massacre.
I didn't do that on purpose. I just didn't know if you wanted me to include it on the list or not.
No. I see where you stand now.
I can pull up the old list and show you it's on there, goddammit.
No. But thank you, David, for taking the time to sit down and help tell all the spookies what they could watch to really enjoy themselves this Halloween. So, if you missed something, rewind, get out your pen and pencil.
Angry letters to me, that's fine.
That's fine. You can email me at weeklyspooky@gmail.com. I'll immediately forward it to Dave if it's negative.
Or text it to me.
Yeah, and if you want to hear more of Dave and I chatting with each other, you can go to freddysnightmares.com and listen to our Freddy Krueger podcast, which has over 50 episodes up right now.
And we are getting to the end of it. I can't believe it.
Yeah, so thank you again, Dave. I do appreciate it.
I
did not think it would be over 2 hours, but I'm happy we could enjoy a thunderstorm together while talking about scary movies. So until next time, I've been Enrique Couto, and you have been David DeNoyer, and everybody else has been someone else. We'll see you guys soon. Thank you.
Happy Halloween.
Oh, yeah.